You pathetic old hag! The words exploded across the crowded demonstration floor at Ironclad Security Solutions, Virginia Beach. Every head turned. Every conversation died. Derek Cole, 29 years old, stood over a 54-year-old woman in a faded janitor uniform. His hand gripped her arm. His face twisted with contempt. He had no idea he was touching a legend. 10 seconds later, the legend would break him. This is the story of Margaret "Ghost" Donovan, the most decorated female sniper in Navy SEAL history. The woman who chose to become invisible, and the moment she decided to be seen. Subscribe now. Follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this story travels. The mop handle was cold against Margaret Donovan's palms at 5:47 a.m. She pushed it across the lobby floor of Ironclad Security Solutions in slow, methodical strokes. The same strokes she'd made yesterday. The same strokes she'd make tomorrow. Invisible movements from an invisible woman. Her gray hair hung in a simple braid down her back. Her hands showed the weathering of 54 years. Her janitor uniform, faded blue, 2 sizes too large, hid the lean muscle beneath. Nobody looked at her. That was exactly how she wanted it. "Hey, cleaning lady." Margaret didn't turn. She knew the voice. Derek Cole, head of training. 29 years old with the ego of a 4-star general and the combat experience of a mall security guard. "I'm talking to you." She kept mopping. Derek's footsteps approached. Heavy, aggressive. The walk of a man who needed everyone to notice him. "The bathroom on the 3rd floor. It's disgusting. I need it cleaned before my 7 a.m. meeting." Margaret finally looked up. Her green eyes that had tracked targets at 800 meters, eyes that had watched men die through a rifle scope, met his. "I cleaned it an hour ago." Derek stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive. Trying too hard. "Then clean it again. Some of us have actual important work to do around here. We can't have clients walking into filthy bathrooms." Margaret's grip tightened on the mop handle. A fraction, imperceptible to anyone who wasn't trained to notice. "I'll take care of it." Derek smirked. The smirk of a man who'd never had real power but desperately wanted it. "That's what I thought. And next time, answer faster when I call you." He walked away, his shoulders thrown back, his chin lifted, performing confidence for an audience that didn't exist. Margaret watched him go. 28 years ago, she would have put him on the ground in 3 seconds. She would have locked his arm behind his back until he apologized. She would have made him understand exactly who he was talking to. But that was before. Before she'd buried her husband at Arlington. Before she'd stood in the rain and watched the flag fold over Thomas Donovan's casket. Before she'd realized that all the combat medals in the world couldn't protect the people you loved. Now she just pushed the mop. Honked. The coffee machine in the break room sputtered and died at 6:15 a.m. Margaret stood in front of it, pressing buttons that didn't respond. The 3rd floor bathroom could wait. She needed caffeine more than Derek needed his ego stroked. Piece of junk. She slapped the side of the machine. Nothing. "You have to hit it on the left side, near the bottom." Margaret turned. A young woman stood in the doorway. Late 20s. Athletic build. Military bearing that she probably didn't realize she displayed. "Excuse me." The coffee machine. The woman walked over and smacked the lower left panel with the heel of her palm. The machine groaned, shuddered, and began brewing. "It's been broken for months. Nobody fixes anything around here anymore." Margaret nodded slowly. "Thank you." "I'm Casey Reeves. I just started in the Tactical Operations Division last week." "Margaret." Casey tilted her head, studying her. It was the look of someone trained to assess. "You've been here a while." 2 years. "What's it like working here?" Margaret considered the question. She could give the easy answer, the safe answer, the answer that kept her invisible. Instead, she said, "It used to be better, before the new management." Casey's eyebrows rose. Bradley Harrison. Him and the people he brought with him. Like Derek Cole. Margaret's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, something Casey caught. "You've had run-ins with him." "Everyone has run-ins with him. He makes sure of it." Casey leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. I did some digging on him, his military record. And he claims Special Forces, Green Beret. Margaret took her coffee, sipped it, waited. He washed out of selection in week 3, medical withdrawal. But the paperwork is fuzzy, like someone helped him make it look better than it was. Margaret set down her cup. Why are you telling me this? Because you looked at him like you knew, like you recognized what he really is. The two women stared at each other. A moment passed. Something unspoken moved between them. I'm just a janitor, Margaret said. I don't know anything about military records. She picked up her mop and walked away. Casey watched her go. Something about the way the older woman moved. Economy of motion, awareness of exits, eyes that tracked corners. Casey had seen that movement before, in her father, in her uncles, in every operator she'd ever known. Just a janitor, she whispered to herself. Sure you are. The executive boardroom smelled like ambition and bad decisions. Margaret pushed her cleaning cart past the half-open door at 11:30 a.m. She wasn't supposed to clean this floor until after 6 p.m., but she'd learned that the best information came from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Bradley Harrison's voice carried through the gap. The timeline is accelerating. Our contacts want the package by Friday. Margaret slowed her cart, pretended to adjust the trash bags. Another voice, male, unfamiliar, foreign accent, Eastern European maybe. The information is sensitive. Active operators, current addresses. If this leaks, it won't leak. Bradley's voice hardened. That's why they're paying what they're paying. And that's why we're using secure channels only. No paper trail, no digital footprint, nothing that can be traced back to us. And the old security protocols, the ones the previous CEO put in place, gone. I had our IT team remove them 3 months ago. Called it modernization. Nobody questioned it. Margaret's hands stopped moving. Active operators, current addresses. She knew what that meant. She knew exactly what that meant. Someone was selling American lives. The foreign voice continued, the clients are concerned about reliability. The last shipment had gaps, missing personnel files, incomplete deployment schedules. Those gaps have been filled. I have someone on the inside at JSOC, low level, administrative access only, but enough to fill in what we need. And the price, $5 million for this package, non-negotiable. Wire transfer to the usual account. I'll send confirmation once the funds clear. Margaret's heart hammered against her ribs, not from fear, from rage. $5 million. That was the price of American lives. That was the price of men and women who'd sworn the same oath she'd sworn, who'd bled for the same flag she'd bled for. She forced her breathing to steady, forced her hands to keep moving. She needed proof. Without proof, she was just a janitor making accusations against a CEO. With proof, she was something else entirely. The server room access code hadn't changed in 18 months. Margaret knew this because she'd memorized it the first week she'd worked at Ironclad. Old habits, the kind that kept operators alive. At 2:17 a.m., she slipped through the door. The room hummed with the sound of cooling fans and processing power. Rows of servers stretched into the darkness, their indicator lights blinking like distant stars. Margaret moved through the shadows with the silence that had earned her call sign 30 years ago. Ghost. The Taliban had given her that name. The villagers in Korangal Valley had whispered it like a prayer or a curse. 23 confirmed kills in a single engagement, and not one enemy fighter had seen where death came from. Now she used those same skills to navigate a corporate server room. The irony wasn't lost on her. She found Bradley's private server in the back corner, separate from the main network. Password protected with what he probably thought was sophisticated encryption. It took her 4 minutes to crack it. She'd been married to a SEAL intelligence officer for 18 years. Thomas had taught her things about digital security that most hackers never learned. The files opened. Margaret's jaw tightened as she scrolled through the contents. Names, addresses, deployment schedules, family information, school locations for children, vehicle registrations, alarm system codes, everything a terrorist would need to hunt SEAL operators and their families. And at the bottom of each file, a price tag. $50,000 for a standard operator profile, $100,000 for team leaders, $250,000 for commanders. Bradley Harrison was running a catalog, an auction house for American lives. Margaret inserted a flash drive, began copying. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. She froze. The footsteps stopped at the server room door. A keypad beeped. Margaret ejected the drive, pocketed it, and moved. 3 seconds to reach the maintenance closet in the corner. 2 seconds to slip inside. 1 second to pull the door closed behind her. The server room lights flickered on. Through the gap in the closet door, Margaret watched Derek Cole walk to the exact server she'd just been accessing. He pulled out a tablet, connected it to the server. His fingers moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. "Shipment confirmed for Friday," he muttered to himself. "Payment cleared. Package ready for delivery." Margaret's blood went cold. Derek wasn't just an arrogant fraud. He was Bradley's inside man, the one handling the actual transfers. He was selling American lives with the same casual efficiency he used to order coffee. Derek disconnected his tablet and headed for the door. He paused at the threshold, turned, scanned the room. Margaret didn't breathe. For a long moment, he stared directly at the maintenance closet. Then he shrugged, killed the lights, and left. Margaret counted to 60 before she moved. The diner, 3 blocks from Ironclad, served the worst coffee in Virginia Beach. Margaret sat in a back booth at 4 a.m. staring at the flash drive in her hand. She had the evidence. She had names, dates, amounts, routing numbers. Everything a federal prosecutor would need to put Bradley Harrison and Derek Cole in prison for the rest of their lives. But she also had a problem. The files showed delivery scheduled for Friday, 3 days away. If she went to the authorities now, if she went through proper channels, the bureaucratic process could take weeks, months maybe. By then, the information would be delivered. By then, SEAL families would be in danger. By then, it might be too late. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. "Mrs. Donovan." The voice was digitally distorted, unrecognizable. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you found tonight. Someone who's been watching you for a long time." Margaret's grip tightened on the phone. "If you're threatening me..." "Not threatening. Warning. Bradley Harrison has more protection than you realize. People in high places. People who benefit from his little business. If you go public with what you have, they will bury you. They will destroy your reputation. They will make you disappear. And what do you suggest I do? Let them sell American lives." A pause, long enough that Margaret thought the call had disconnected. Then, "I suggest you do what you've always done, Ghost. I suggest you take the shot when the shot presents itself. I suggest you trust the people who earned trust." The line went dead. Margaret stared at the phone. Someone knew her call sign. Someone knew what she'd found. Someone was watching. And she had no idea if they were friend or enemy. Doug. The Tactical Excellence Showcase was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Margaret learned about it from the company-wide email that Derek sent with characteristic self-importance. All employees required to attend. This demonstration will showcase Ironclad's commitment to tactical excellence and modern warfare solutions. Translation. Derek wanted an audience for his ego. Margaret almost ignored it, almost continued her invisible routine of mopping floors and emptying trash cans. But the anonymous caller's words echoed in her mind. Trust the people who earned trust. She needed to know who at Ironclad could be trusted. She needed to identify potential allies before she made her move. The showcase would put everyone in one room, would let her observe, would let her assess. It would also put her directly in Derek's line of sight, a risk, a calculated one. She made her decision. Thursday arrived with the kind of Virginia Beach humidity that made breathing feel like drowning. Margaret pushed her cleaning cart through the demonstration hall at 1:30 p.m., half an hour before the showcase began. Corporate clients filled the rows of chairs. Government contractors in expensive suits. Military liaison officers in dress uniforms. And at the front of the room, Derek Cole held court. He wore tactical gear that looked fresh from the packaging, not a scuff mark in sight. His AR-15 rifle gleamed with the kind of polish that screamed, never used in actual combat. Bradley Harrison stood beside him, shaking hands with potential investors, his smile as artificial as his moral compass. Margaret positioned herself near the refreshment table in the back corner. Invisible. Forgettable. Just another service worker in a room full of important people. Casey Reeves appeared beside her. I thought janitors didn't attend corporate showcases. Margaret didn't look at her. The coffee urns need monitoring. The coffee urns are self-service. Then I'm being thorough. Casey followed her gaze to Derek. He's going to do the sniper demonstration, long-range precision shooting. Claims he can hit a target at 400 meters. Claims, I've seen his qualification scores. He barely passed at 200. Margaret finally looked at her. Why are you telling me this? Casey's expression shifted. Serious. Intent. Because I ran your name. Margaret Donovan. The name didn't flag anything, but then I ran your social security number against military databases. Margaret's pulse stayed steady. Years of training. Years of controlling reactions. I'm a janitor. I don't have a military file. No, you don't. Because someone classified it beyond my clearance level. The only personnel files that classified belong to one of three categories: intelligence operatives, special mission units, or legends. People who did things the government doesn't want publicly documented. Margaret turned back to watching Derek. You have an active imagination. I have a godfather who's a JSOC commander, Admiral William Cross. I called him last night. Asked him if he'd ever heard of a ghost. The name hit Margaret like a round to the chest. She didn't show it. He said ghost was a myth. A story operators tell new recruits to scare them. A female sniper who killed 23 Taliban fighters in a single engagement, who held a position in Korangal Valley for 72 hours alone, who disappeared from active duty 10 years ago and was never seen again. Casey stepped closer. He also said that if Ghost was real, if she ever came back, he'd want to know immediately. Margaret picked up a coffee cup, filled it, sipped. Sounds like a good story. Is it just a story? Before Margaret could answer, Derek's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ironclad Security Solutions Tactical Excellence Showcase. The demonstration was everything Margaret expected. Derek strutted across the stage like a peacock in body armor. He explained rifle mechanics to an audience that either already knew or didn't care. He name-dropped operations he'd never participated in. He referenced tactics he'd only read about in books. And when he finally shouldered his rifle for the long-range demonstration, Margaret noticed what no one else did. His scope was misaligned. 2 MOA left, enough to miss a human-sized target at 400 meters. Either his equipment manager was incompetent, or someone had sabotaged him. Derek took aim. The room fell silent. He fired. The round struck 6 inches left of center. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Derek's face reddened. He made adjustments to his scope. Fired again, 8 inches right, overcompensated. The murmurs grew louder. Bradley Harrison's smile became fixed, frozen, a mask of damage control. Derek fired a third time, 4 inches high. Someone in the back laughed. Not loudly, but loud enough. Margaret watched Derek's hands begin to shake, watched his jaw tighten, watched the carefully constructed facade of tactical expertise crumble in real time. He needed a scapegoat. He needed someone to blame. His eyes swept the room and landed on her. What happened next would play out in Margaret's memory for years afterward. Derek saw her standing near the refreshment table, saw her watching his failure, saw something in her eyes, recognition, judgment, pity that his ego couldn't tolerate. He set down his rifle, hard, metal on metal. He walked toward her. The crowd parted. Instinct, the animal recognition of predator approaching prey. But Margaret Donovan, had never been prey. Derek stopped 3 feet from her. "You think this is funny?" Margaret said nothing. "I saw you watching. I saw you judging. Who the hell do you think you are?" Still nothing. "Answer me." His voice cracked with rage. The kind of rage that comes from humiliation. The kind that needs to destroy something, anything, to survive. Margaret met his eyes. Calm. Steady. "Your scope was off. 2 MOA left. Anyone with basic marksmanship training would have caught it." The words were quiet. Factual. Delivered without emotion. They detonated like a grenade. Derek's face went purple. "What did you say to me?" "I said your scope was off. That's why you missed." "And how the hell would you know that you're the cleaning lady?" The room held its breath. Margaret felt it all, the decades of training, the thousands of hours behind a rifle. The 127 confirmed kills that made her the most lethal female sniper in American military history rise up inside her like a tide. She pushed it down, controlled it, remained invisible. "I noticed, that's all." Derek stepped closer, close enough to touch. "You noticed. The old woman who mops floors noticed a scope misalignment that my equipment team missed." "Yes. And you expect me to believe that—" "I don't expect you to believe anything." Derek's hand shot out. He grabbed her arm, hard, fingers digging into flesh. "Don't you dare talk back to me. Don't you dare embarrass me in front of clients. Do you understand who I am? Do you have any idea what I could do to you?" Margaret looked at his hand on her arm. Then she looked at his face, and she made a choice. The same choice she'd made 1,000 times before, in Helmand Province, in Syria, in Iraq, in the Korengal Valley, where death came invisible and precise. She chose to act. "Let go of my arm." Her voice carried across the silent room, not loud, but clear, the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. Derek laughed, the laugh of a bully who thinks he's winning. "Or what, you'll mop me to death." "I'm asking once. Let go." His grip tightened. "Make me." Margaret's left hand moved. Fast. Faster than Derek could process. Her fingers found the pressure point on his wrist, the nerve cluster that his gym-built muscles couldn't protect. She pressed. Hard. Derek's hand flew open involuntarily. A gasp escaped his lips. Before he could react, her right hand swept his rifle off the demonstration table in one fluid motion. The crowd gasped. Margaret shouldered the weapon with the muscle memory of 10,000 training sessions. Checked the chamber. Felt the weight. Assessed the balance. In 3 seconds, she knew everything wrong with the rifle. In 3 seconds, she'd made the mental calculations to compensate. In 3 seconds, she was ghost again. Ghost. "That scope adjustment you made overcorrected by 1.5 MOA, she said. "Your barrel is cold. Add 0.3 for the drop. Wind from the southeast, 6 miles per hour. Adjust half MOA right." She raised the rifle, acquired the 400-meter target, exhaled, fired, dead center. The sound echoed through the demonstration hall like thunder. Margaret racked the bolt without lowering the rifle, fired again. Same hole. Third shot, same hole. 3 rounds through a single point at 400 meters. A feat that most professional marksmen would call impossible. Margaret lowered the rifle, set it on the table, turned to face Derek. His face was white, paper white, the white of a man whose entire worldview had just collapsed. "My name is Margaret Donovan, Master Chief, SEAL Team 3, 28 years active service, call sign Ghost, 127 confirmed kills." She stepped toward him. He stumbled backward. "I held a position in Korengal Valley for 72 hours alone, protecting a downed helicopter crew from Taliban fighters who wanted to capture the pilot alive. I took 31 lives in that engagement. I received the Navy Cross from the President of the United States." Another step. Derek hit the demonstration table. "I buried my husband at Arlington National Cemetery." He was Sergeant Major Thomas Donovan. He died in Ramadi, protecting his team from an ambush that happened because someone sold his location to the enemy. Her voice cracked, just slightly, the first emotion she'd shown. So when you call me cleaning lady, when you grab my arm, when you try to humiliate me in front of clients, remember what you're actually touching. Remember who you're actually threatening. She leaned close enough to whisper. And remember that I chose to be invisible. I chose to mop your floors. I chose to empty your trash cans. Because the alternative was killing people who deserved it. She stepped back. You don't want to be on that list. The demonstration hall was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Casey Reeves stood frozen in the back, her phone pressed to her ear. Admiral Cross's voice buzzing with urgent questions she couldn't answer. Bradley Harrison gripped the edge of his chair, his knuckles white, calculating how to spin this disaster into something that wouldn't destroy his operation. Derek Cole stood trembling against the demonstration table, his tactical gear suddenly absurd, his carefully constructed identity in ruins at his feet. And Margaret Donovan, 54 years old, silver-haired, wearing a faded janitor uniform, Margaret Donovan picked up her mop. I'll be cleaning the third-floor bathroom now, since you asked. She pushed her cart toward the exit. The crowd parted before her like water around stone. 20 minutes later in a bathroom she had no intention of cleaning, Margaret's hands finally began to shake. She gripped the sink edge, stared at herself in the mirror, saw the woman she'd been trying to bury for 10 years staring back. Ghost. The name she'd earned in blood and grief. The name she'd tried to leave in the mountains of Afghanistan. The name that had followed her across oceans and years and desperate attempts at anonymity. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. She answered. Impressive performance. The same digitally distorted voice from before. Though I expected you to wait longer before revealing yourself. Who are you? A friend. One who knows what you're carrying in your pocket. One who knows what Bradley Harrison is selling. One who knows that your husband's death wasn't an accident. Margaret's blood froze. What did you say? Thomas Donovan, Ramadi, March 15th, 2017. The ambush that killed him wasn't random. His position was sold to insurgent fighters. The price was $73,000. You're lying. The seller used the same encrypted channels Bradley Harrison uses today. The same offshore accounts. The same methods. Margaret's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles went white. Are you saying? I'm saying Bradley Harrison's predecessor started this operation. I'm saying your husband was one of the first victims. I'm saying Bradley inherited the business and expanded it. And I'm saying that if you don't stop the Friday delivery, more families will join yours in grief. Who are you? How do you know this? A pause. I'm someone who should have stopped this years ago. Someone who failed. Someone who's giving you the chance I never had. The line went dead. Margaret stood in the silence. Her husband's face floated before her, his laugh, his hands, the way he'd held her the night before his final deployment. I'll be back before you know it, he'd said. I promise. But he hadn't come back. Not really. What came back was a flag-draped casket and a medal she'd never wanted. And now she knew why. Someone had sold him. Someone had priced his life at $73,000 and traded it away like a commodity. Margaret looked at herself in the mirror again. The janitor was gone. Ghost looked back. Casey Reeves found her in the parking lot at sunset. Margaret leaned against her truck, a battered Ford pickup that she'd driven for 15 years, and watched the colors bleed across the Virginia Beach sky. Admiral Cross wants to talk to you. I'm sure he does. He's dispatching a team, says he needs to verify your identity through proper channels. I know how it works. Casey stood beside her. Neither woman looked at the other. Why didn't you just tell someone about what you found in the server room? Margaret smiled, tired, sad. Because I wasn't sure who to trust. I'm still not sure. You can trust me. Can I? You've been here 3 weeks. You report to Bradley Harrison. For all I know, you're part of this. Casey turned to face her. I'm not. How would I know? Because if I was part of this, I wouldn't have called my godfather. I wouldn't have told him about you. I wouldn't be standing here risking my career to help a janitor I just met. Margaret finally looked at her. Really looked. She saw something in Casey's eyes. Something she recognized. The same fire that had burned in her own eyes 30 years ago. The same determination. The same stubborn refusal to let injustice stand. The delivery happens Friday, Margaret said. Less than 48 hours. Current addresses and deployment schedules for active SEAL operators. If that information reaches the buyers' families will die. Then we stop it. You think I'm going to stand on the sidelines while American lives hang in the balance? I didn't join this company to push papers and attend showcases. I joined because I wanted to make a difference. Margaret studied her for a long moment. You remind me of someone. Who? Me. Before I learned that wanting to make a difference and actually making one are two very different things. Casey stepped closer. Then teach me. Whatever happens next, let me help. The sun touched the horizon, orange and red and purple like the sky was bleeding. Margaret made her second choice of the day. There's a diner 3 blocks from here, bad coffee, good privacy. Meet me there at midnight. And then we figure out how to save some lives. She climbed into her truck, started the engine. Midnight, Margaret, I'll be there. Margaret pulled out of the parking lot. In her rearview mirror, she watched Casey Reeves grow smaller. The girl didn't know what she was getting into, didn't understand the cost, didn't realize that once you stepped onto this path, there was no stepping off. But then again, neither had Margaret. 30 years ago, a young woman had walked into Bud's training with something to prove. She'd survived Hell Week, earned her trident, became a legend, and she'd paid for it with everything she loved. Now the legend was rising again. From the ashes of grief and the depths of invisibility, Ghost was returning. The question was, what would be left when she was done? The night came fast and dark. Margaret sat in her apartment, a 1-bedroom efficiency that she'd chosen specifically because it looked like nothing, and cleaned her rifle for the first time in 2 years. The weapon felt familiar in her hands. A Remington 700. Custom modifications. The same rifle she'd carried through 3 combat deployments. She hadn't fired it since the day she'd watched Thomas's casket descend into the earth. I can't do this anymore, she'd told herself that day. I can't be this person anymore. But she'd been wrong. You don't choose to be a warrior. You don't get to retire from it. The skills live in your muscle memory. The training lives in your reflexes. The mindset lives in your soul. You can hide from it. You can pretend it doesn't exist. You can push mops and empty trash cans and pretend you're someone ordinary. But the moment the threat appears, the moment innocent lives hang in the balance, the warrior rises. Margaret finished cleaning the rifle, checked the scope, loaded the magazine. 5 rounds, match-grade ammunition, effective range 1,000 meters. More than enough for what was coming. Her phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number, 3rd time today. You're preparing? Margaret didn't respond. Good. You'll need to be ready. Bradley's moving up the timeline. The buyers are getting nervous. They want the delivery tomorrow night instead of Friday. How do you know this? Because I know everything that happens inside Ironclad. Every email, every phone call, every secure transmission. If you know everything, why haven't you stopped it yourself? A long pause. Because I can't. Because I'm in a position where acting directly would expose other operations, other agents, other lives that matter. Your intelligence. I'm someone who's been watching this cancer grow for years. Someone who's been waiting for the right person to appear. Someone who finally found her. Why me? Because you have nothing left to lose. Because you've already sacrificed everything. Because when this is over, whether you succeed or fail, you won't be able to be traced back to anyone or anything. The words hit like bullets. You're using me. I'm giving you a chance to finish what started when your husband died, to prove that his sacrifice meant something, to save the lives of operators who are walking around right now with no idea they're being hunted. Margaret's hand tightened on the phone. What do you want me to do? The demonstration tomorrow. Bradley's planning something. A distraction. Something to cover the delivery. Be there. Be ready. And when the moment comes, I take the shot. You take all the shots. Every single one that needs taking. The line went dead. Margaret set down her phone. She looked at the rifle on her table. At the uniform hanging in her closet, the one she hadn't worn in 10 years. At the medals in the box she kept under her bed. Tomorrow. Everything would change tomorrow. She picked up the rifle again, started cleaning it from the beginning. At midnight, she walked into the diner. Casey Reeves sat in the back booth, 2 cups of terrible coffee on the table between them. Margaret slid into the opposite seat. You came. I said I would. Most people say a lot of things they don't mean. Casey pushed a coffee toward her. I'm not most people. No, she wasn't. Margaret could see that now, could see the steel beneath the youth. Tell me everything, Casey said. From the beginning. What did you find? What's Bradley selling, who's buying? Margaret took a sip of coffee. Grimaced. The diner's reputation was well earned. Then she started talking. She told Casey about the server room, about the files, about the names and addresses and family information being cataloged for sale. She told her about Derek's involvement, about the delivery scheduled for tomorrow night, about the anonymous caller who seemed to know everything. And she told her about Thomas, about the connection, about the possibility that her husband's death was the result of this same operation. When she finished, Casey sat in silence for a long moment. That's why you took the janitor job. You weren't hiding. You were hunting. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew something was wrong. Ironclad's reputation changed after the old CEO died. New clients, suspicious contracts, money that didn't add up. You investigated on your own. For 2 years, piece by piece, night by night, until tonight when I finally found enough to understand the whole picture. Casey leaned forward. So what's the plan? Tomorrow's demonstration. Bradley's using it as cover. While everyone's distracted, Derek will complete the delivery from the secure server room. And we stop them how? You don't stop them. I stop them. Excuse me. You contact Admiral Cross. Tell him everything I've told you. Get official authorization for intervention. And you. I make sure the delivery doesn't happen, no matter what. Casey's jaw tightened. You're planning to do this alone. I've done harder things alone. You don't have to. Margaret met her eyes, saw the determination there, the stubborn fire. Listen to me. What I'm about to do, it's not legal. It's not sanctioned. If it goes wrong, anyone associated with me gets destroyed, their career, their reputation, their future. I don't care about my career. You should. You're 26. You have 30 years ahead of you. Don't throw that away for an old woman's vendetta. Casey reached across the table, grabbed Margaret's hand. It's not just your vendetta. It's mine now, too. Those operators being sold out, some of them are people I trained with, people I know, people whose kids I've met at squadron barbecues. Her grip tightened. You gave me a speech this afternoon about who you are and what you've done. Now let me give you one. I'm Casey Reeves. My father was a SEAL. My grandfather was a SEAL. I grew up on naval bases surrounded by warriors. I've wanted to be one of them since I was 6 years old. And I'm not going to sit on the sidelines while warriors like you fight alone. That's not who I am. That's not who my family raised me to be. Margaret studied her face, saw the youth, saw the fire, saw something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. One condition. Name it. When things go bad, and they will go bad, you get out. You protect yourself. You don't die for me. Casey smiled, the smile of someone who'd already made up her mind. We'll see. The night stretched on. Plans took shape. Contingencies were mapped. Worst-case scenarios were discussed with the cold pragmatism of people who understood that worst cases happened more often than anyone wanted to admit. By 3 a.m., they had something that resembled a strategy. By 4 a.m., Casey had left to contact Admiral Cross through channels that couldn't be traced back to Ironclad. By 5 a.m., Margaret sat alone again, watching the first gray light of dawn touch the horizon. Tomorrow. The word hung in her mind like a weight. In 20 hours, everything would be decided. Lives would be saved or lost. Secrets would be exposed or buried. And Margaret Donovan Ghost would finally face the demons she'd been running from for a decade. She thought about Thomas, about the life they'd planned, the future they'd dreamed about, retiring together, growing old together, watching sunsets on a beach somewhere warm, all of it stolen, all of it sold for $73,000. "I'm going to finish this," she whispered to the empty room. "For you, for them, for everyone who ever trusted someone who betrayed that trust." The sun rose. Margaret Donovan rose with it. Ghost was ready. The sun had barely cleared the horizon when Margaret's phone buzzed with a text from Casey. "Cross is mobilizing, but he's 12 hours out. We're on our own until then." Margaret typed back, "Understood. Stay invisible. Watch Bradley." She set down the phone and finished loading her backup pistol. A Glock 19, 15 rounds, the same weapon she'd carried through 3 deployments when her rifle wasn't practical. Today, both might be necessary. Her apartment felt different this morning. Smaller. The walls pressing in like they knew what was coming. She'd lived here for 2 years in perfect anonymity, and now that anonymity was shattered. By noon, everyone at Ironclad would know who she really was. By tonight, she'd either be a hero or a corpse. Margaret checked her watch. 6:47 a.m. The demonstration was scheduled for 2 p.m. That gave her 7 hours to prepare. 7 hours to save American lives. 7 hours to finish what started in Ramadi when Thomas died. She grabbed her keys and walked out the door. The diner was empty at 7 a.m. except for the waitress and a man sitting in Margaret's usual booth. She stopped 3 feet from the table. Her hand moved toward her concealed weapon. "Easy, Ghost." The man looked up. Mid-60s. Silver hair. Hard eyes that had seen too much. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Who are you?" "Someone who's been waiting a long time for this conversation." Margaret didn't move. The anonymous caller. In person. Finally. He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit. We have a lot to discuss and not much time." She stayed standing. "Give me one reason to trust you." The man reached into his jacket pocket. Slowly. Deliberately. He pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. Margaret looked down. Her breath caught. The photograph showed Thomas, her Thomas, standing next to the man sitting in front of her, both in desert camouflage, both smiling. A date stamp in the corner, March 2017, 3 weeks before Thomas died. "My name is Colonel Richard Hayes, retired. I was Thomas's commanding officer in Ramadi." Margaret's legs weakened. She sat. "He never mentioned you." "He couldn't. Our operation was classified beyond anything you had clearance for. We were tracking the same network that Bradley Harrison runs today. You knew someone was selling operator information." Hayes's jaw tightened. "We suspected. We had fragments, pieces of a puzzle we couldn't complete. Thomas was getting close. Too close. And they killed him for it. They ambushed his convoy using information that should have been impossible to obtain. Patrol routes, timing, vehicle configurations. Everything they needed to set the perfect trap." Margaret's hands clenched on the table edge. "Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you warn him?" "I tried." Hayes's voice cracked, just slightly. "I sent a message through secure channels the night before. It never reached him. Someone intercepted it. Someone inside our own network." "Who?" "That's what I've spent 8 years trying to find out. The trail led me to Bradley Harrison's predecessor, then to Bradley himself, then to Ironclad Security Solutions. And to me. You walked into the lion's den without knowing it. You took a janitor job at the exact company that killed your husband. I've been watching you for 2 years, waiting to see if you'd find what I couldn't." Margaret stared at him. "You used me as bait. I used you as an investigator. Someone with the skills to find evidence I couldn't access. Someone with the motivation to dig deeper than any federal agent would. And now the delivery happens tonight. Tomorrow morning, 37 SEAL operators and their families become targets. Children, Margaret, wives, parents, all of them cataloged and priced like cattle." He leaned forward. "I can't stop it through official channels. I've tried. Every time I get close, someone tips off Bradley, someone with enough power to make evidence disappear and witnesses go silent. You think there's a mole in JSOC. I think there's a mole everywhere, which is why I came to you directly. No channels, no bureaucracy, just one warrior talking to another." Margaret processed this. 8 years of grief and questions suddenly had answers. 8 years of wondering why suddenly had a face. "What do you need from me?" Hayes pulled out a second item from his jacket, a small device, transmitter. "This will broadcast everything in the server room. Every word, every file transfer, every piece of evidence Bradley thinks he's hiding. I need you to plant it before the delivery begins. And then we let him complete the transaction. We record everything. Names, accounts, routing, numbers, the buyer's identities. We get the whole network, not just Bradley. While 37 families hang in the balance. Admiral Cross will intercept the information before it reaches the buyers. He's positioning assets now, but he needs the full picture to take down everyone involved." Margaret looked at the transmitter. Small, innocuous, the key to everything. "Why should I believe any of this? You could be part of the network yourself. This could be a trap." Hayes nodded slowly. "You're right. You have no reason to trust me." He reached into his pocket again, pulled out a worn leather wallet, opened it. Inside was a photograph of Thomas and Margaret on their wedding day, both smiling, both unaware of the years that would follow. "Thomas gave me this the week before he died. He said if anything happened to him, I should find you. He said you were the strongest person he'd ever known. He said you'd know what to do when the time came." Margaret took the photograph with trembling hands. "He never told me about you, about any of this. He was protecting you. The less you knew, the safer you were." Hayes stood. "The demonstration starts at 2 p.m. Plant the transmitter before then. I'll handle the rest." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "Margaret, what you did yesterday at the showcase, revealing yourself, that took courage. Or stupidity. Same thing in my experience." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Thomas would have been proud." He left. Margaret sat alone with her husband's photograph and a transmitter that could change everything. Casey's voice came through the burner phone at 9 a.m. sharp. "We have a problem." Margaret was already in the parking lot outside Ironclad watching the building from her truck. "What kind?" "Derek's called a security meeting. All hands. He's claiming there was a breach last night." "There was me. Not the server room. He's saying someone tried to access Bradley's personal office. He's got security footage." Margaret's stomach dropped. "I didn't go near Bradley's office." "I know. Someone's setting you up." Margaret scanned the parking lot, counted the security vehicles. 3 more than usual. "They're tightening the perimeter, making it harder to move. There's more. Derek's bringing in outside contractors. Private security. They're already arriving." "How many 12 so far. More coming. 12 armed contractors plus Ironclad's regular security team. That made the odds significantly worse." "What about Admiral Cross?" "Still 8 hours out. He's accelerating, but logistics take time." "We don't have time." "I know." Casey's voice tightened. "What do you want me to do?" Margaret thought fast. The plan was falling apart before it started. Bradley knew something was wrong. Derek was mobilizing defenses. And someone, maybe Hayes, maybe someone else, was framing her for a breach she didn't commit. "Stay where you are. Keep watching." And Casey, "Yeah. If things go bad, get out. Don't try to help me. Don't try to be a hero. Just get out and make sure Cross knows everything. Margaret, promise me." A long pause. I promise." The call ended. Margaret stared at the ironclad building. The walls that had hidden her for 2 years now felt like the walls of a prison closing in. She had 5 hours until the demonstration. 5 hours to plant the transmitter. 5 hours to survive. Getting inside proved easier than expected. Margaret walked through the front entrance at 10:30 a.m. with her cleaning cart wearing her janitor uniform like armor. The security guard at the desk, a young man named Marcus, who'd always been kind to her, barely looked up. "Morning, Mrs. Donovan?" "Morning, Marcus. Heard there was some excitement yesterday. Something about a sniper demonstration?" "News travels fast." Marcus leaned closer, lowered his voice. "Between us, everyone in the security office is talking about it. The video's already been shared maybe 50 times. You're kind of a legend now." Margaret paused. "Video. Someone recorded the whole thing. You shooting Derek's targets. The speech afterward. Everything." He grinned. "Half the staff thinks you're a hero. The other half is terrified of you." "And Derek," Marcus's grin faded. "He's not taking it well. Been in Bradley's office all morning. Lots of yelling." "I'll bet." Margaret pushed her cart toward the elevators. Her mind raced. Video. Someone had recorded her reveal, which meant evidence existed. Evidence that could be used against her. Or evidence that could be used to prove her identity to skeptical authorities. A double-edged sword. The elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor. Margaret stepped out and came face to face with Derek Cole. He stood in the hallway, flanked by 2 of the new security contractors. Big men. Military bearing. The kind of men who got hired for jobs that required flexible ethics. "Mrs. Donovan," Derek's voice dripped with contempt. "Or should I say, Master Chief?" Margaret kept her expression neutral. "Derek, I've been looking for you. We have some unfinished business." "I'm working." "Your work here is finished." He stepped closer. "Bradley wants to see you. Now." The 2 contractors moved to flank her. Close enough to grab her if she ran. Close enough to hurt her if she resisted. Margaret calculated the angles. 2 men. Armed. Approximately 6 feet away. Derek directly in front. Elevator behind her. Stairwell 20 feet to the left. She could take them. She knew she could take them. But that would burn any chance of planting the transmitter. Would end any hope of completing the mission. "Lead the way." Derek smiled. The smile of a man who thought he'd won. Smart choice. Bradley Harrison's office occupied the entire northwest corner of the top floor. Margaret had never been inside. Janitors weren't allowed in the executive suite without specific authorization. Now she walked through the mahogany doors with Derek at her back and 2 contractors at her sides. Bradley sat behind a desk that cost more than Margaret's annual salary. His suit was immaculate. His smile was predatory. "Master Chief Donovan, please sit." Margaret remained standing. "I prefer not to." "Suit yourself." Bradley gestured to Derek. "Leave us." Derek's face twisted. "Sir, I don't think—" "I said leave us." The contractors exchanged glances. Derek hesitated, then nodded sharply and walked out. The door closed behind them. Bradley and Margaret were alone. "You've caused quite a disruption," Bradley said. "Yesterday's little performance has my investors asking questions. My board wants answers. My security team is in chaos." "Sounds like a personal problem." Bradley's smile didn't waver. "You know I researched you after the demonstration. Margaret Donovan, Master Chief, SEAL Team 3. Quite an impressive record." "Get to the point." "The point is that you've been working in my building for 2 years. Cleaning my floors, emptying my trash cans, and all that time you were investigating me." Margaret said nothing. "I'm curious. What were you looking for? What did you hope to find?" "I think you know." "The server room." Bradley nodded slowly. "We found the evidence of unauthorized access. Very professional. Very thorough. You almost covered your tracks completely." "Almost." "One small mistake. A fingerprint on the maintenance closet door. Easily overlooked unless you know what you're looking for." Margaret's mind raced. She'd been careful, meticulous, but everyone made mistakes. So, now what? You have me arrested? Bradley laughed. A genuine laugh that somehow made him seem more dangerous. Arrested? No. That would attract attention, investigations, questions, the kind of scrutiny I prefer to avoid. He stood, walked around the desk, stopped 3 feet from her. I have a different proposal. You have information that belongs to me, files you copied, evidence you plan to use. I want it back. And if I refuse, then I'll have to pursue alternative methods of retrieval, methods that would be unpleasant for everyone involved. Margaret held his gaze. You're threatening to kill me. I'm offering you a choice. Return what you took, walk away, and we pretend none of this ever happened. Or refuse and face consequences that extend far beyond yourself. What does that mean? Bradley pulled out his phone, showed her a photograph. Casey Reeves, sitting in her car, taken from outside Ironclad's parking lot. This morning. Such a promising young woman. Admiral Cross's goddaughter, I understand. It would be tragic if something happened to her. Margaret's blood ran cold. You wouldn't. I would. I have. And I will continue to do whatever is necessary to protect my interests. He pocketed the phone. The choice is yours, Master Chief. Your evidence. Or her life. Margaret's training screamed at her to act. To neutralize the threat. To eliminate Bradley Harrison before he could hurt anyone else. But Casey's face floated before her. Young. Determined. Full of the fire that Margaret had once possessed. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't, but you know what happens if you refuse. The clock on Bradley's wall ticked, each second feeling like a lifetime. I need time. The evidence is stored off-site. You have until the demonstration ends, 4 p.m. After that, my patience expires. He returned to his desk, sat down, began reviewing documents as if Margaret had already left. Derek will escort you out. I suggest you use the next few hours wisely. Margaret turned toward the door. One more thing. She stopped. Your husband, Thomas, he was getting too close as well. He made the same choice you're facing now. He chose wrong. Margaret's hand shook. She forced it still. I'll be in touch. She walked out. Derek was waiting in the hallway. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Rough meeting. Margaret didn't respond. Bradley's not a patient man. Whatever he asked for, I'd give it to him. Fast. She pushed past him toward the elevator. Hey! Derek grabbed her arm. I'm talking to you. Margaret looked at his hand, then at his face. Remove it, or lose it. Something in her voice made him let go. Something that reminded him of yesterday, of the rifle, of the 3 shots through a single hole. This isn't over, he said. No. Margaret stepped into the elevator. It isn't. The doors closed between them. The break room on the 2nd floor was empty at 11:45 a.m. Margaret sat in the corner, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she had no intention of drinking. Her mind worked through the problem from every angle. Bradley had Casey, or would have her soon. The photograph proved surveillance. The threat was credible, but the mission remained. 37 families, operator identities, American lives. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. You met with Bradley. Hayes's voice. He knows about Casey. He has pictures. A pause. That changes things. Does it change the 37 families who'll be hunted if we don't stop this? It complicates extraction. Extraction isn't my priority. Stopping the delivery is. Margaret, listen to me. Her voice hardened. I've lost everyone I ever loved to this operation. My husband, my career. 10 years of my life hiding in the shadows while monsters like Bradley Harrison sold American blood. I'm not losing Casey too. What are you proposing? A change in tactics. We don't wait for the demonstration. We move now. Now that's suicide. The building is crawling with security. I've operated in worse conditions. You were 30 years younger. You had a team. You had support. I had less to lose. Margaret stood. The server room. How long do I need to plant the transmitter? 30 seconds, maybe less. And the transmission range? Building wide. Once it's active, I can monitor everything from outside. Good. I'm moving in 15 minutes. Have your people ready. Margaret, wait. She ended the call. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her mind was clear. The fog of uncertainty that had plagued her for years lifted like morning mist burning off under sunlight. This was what she'd been trained for. This was who she really was. Not a janitor. Not an invisible woman. Not a grieving widow. A warrior. The server room door required a key card and a 6-digit code. Margaret had both. 2 years of invisible observation had taught her how to watch without being watched. How to memorize without appearing to memorize. How to become so forgettable that people forgot to hide their secrets. 12:03 p.m. The hallway was empty. Security had focused their attention on the demonstration hall 3 floors up. She swiped the card, entered the code. The door clicked open. The server room hummed with electronic life. Rows of blinking lights, cooling fans spinning. The digital heartbeat of ironclad security solutions. Margaret moved fast. The transmitter was small enough to fit in her palm. She found the same server she'd accessed 2 nights ago. Planted the device behind a cluster of cables where it would never be noticed. 30 seconds. Hayes had been optimistic. She was done in 12. Her phone vibrated. Text from Casey. Derek moving to server room. 2 men out. Margaret's heart accelerated. She scanned the room for exits. 1 door. The one she'd entered through. No windows. No vents large enough to crawl through. Trapped. Unless. The maintenance closet in the corner. The same closet she'd hidden in 2 nights ago. If Derek didn't search it thoroughly. Footsteps in the hallway. Getting closer. Margaret sprinted to the closet. Slipped inside. Pulled the door closed just as the server room entrance opened. Through the gap in the door, she watched Derek enter. He was alone. No security contractors. No backup. Strange. Bradley had been so careful. Why would Derek come alone? He walked directly to Bradley's private server, connected his tablet. His fingers moved across the screen. Come on, he muttered. Where are you? He was looking for something. Something specific. Margaret held her breath, watched. Derek pulled up a file. His face went pale. No. This can't be right. He started typing frantically, deleting files, covering tracks. You idiot, he whispered to himself. You stupid, careless idiot. Whatever he'd found had terrified him. Whatever he was deleting was dangerous enough to make Derek Cole forget his usual arrogance. Margaret's phone vibrated again. She ignored it. Derek finished his deletion, disconnected his tablet, stood there for a long moment staring at the server like it might bite him. Then he turned and looked directly at the maintenance closet. Margaret's hand moved to her concealed pistol. If he opened that door, Derek took a step toward the closet. Another step. His hand reached for the handle. His phone rang. Derek froze. Answered. Yes, sir. I'm in the server room now. The files are deleted. No one will find them. A pause. Understood. I'll be at the demonstration in an hour. He hung up, looked at the closet one more time, then turned and walked out. Margaret waited a full minute after the door closed before she moved. She checked her phone. 2 missed texts from Casey. Derek left. You clear. Then, Margaret, answer me. She typed back, clear. Meet me at the loading dock. 15 minutes. Whatever Derek had deleted, it was important enough to make him panic. Important enough to make Bradley call him personally. And now Margaret needed to find out what it was. Casey was waiting at the loading dock with a laptop. I intercepted Derek's tablet connection, she said without preamble. He didn't know I had access to the server's backup logs. What did he delete? Casey turned the laptop to face her. A file directory filled the screen. Financial records, transaction histories, but not Bradley's transactions. Whose then? Casey scrolled down, highlighted a name. Margaret read it. Read it again. Her blood turned to ice. That's not possible. I triple-checked. The records are clear. The name on the screen was Admiral William Cross, Casey's godfather. The man who was supposed to be mobilizing to help them. The man Hayes trusted to intercept the delivery. 8 years of transactions, Casey said. Her voice shook. Regular payments from the same offshore accounts Bradley uses. My godfather has been part of this network since the beginning. Margaret stared at the screen. Everything she thought she knew shifted like sand beneath her feet. Cross wasn't coming to help them. Cross was coming to clean up loose ends. We have to go. Margaret grabbed Casey's arm. Now, we have to get out of here. And go where Cross has resources everywhere. If he's compromised, then we trust no one. We move on our own. We find Hayes and... Margaret stopped. Hayes had contacted Cross. Hayes had told Cross everything about the mission, about the transmitter, about the timeline. If Cross was compromised, then Hayes had walked them both into a trap. The transmitter... Margaret breathed. I have to disable it. What? Why? Because it's not broadcasting to Hayes anymore. It's broadcasting to Cross. Every piece of evidence we collect goes straight to the man who'll destroy it. Casey's face went white. Then everything we've done has been helping them cover their tracks. Margaret turned toward the building. Where are you going? To fix this. To find another way. Margaret, the demonstration starts in less than 2 hours. The building is locked down. There's no way. There's always a way. Margaret looked back at her. Stay here. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, run. Get as far from Virginia Beach as you can. Find someone you trust, someone not connected to the military, and tell them everything. I'm not letting you go alone. You don't have a choice. The hell I don't. Casey stepped forward, her jaw set, her eyes blazing. My godfather is a traitor. The man who held me at my christening, who came to every birthday, who wrote my recommendation for the academy, he's been selling American lives for 8 years, including maybe Thomas Donovan. Her voice cracked. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm going in there with you, and we're going to burn it all down. Margaret saw herself in Casey's eyes, 30 years younger, burning with the same fire, ready to sacrifice everything for what was right. She couldn't stop her. Didn't want to. Stay close. Follow my lead. And when I tell you to run, I know. Run. Margaret nodded. They moved toward the building together. The demonstration hall was filling with guests when Margaret and Casey slipped through a service entrance at 1:47 p.m. Corporate executives, government contractors, military liaisons, all gathered to watch Derek Cole's redemption performance, all unaware that they were standing in the middle of a battlefield. Margaret spotted Bradley in the front row, his smile fixed and professional. Derek stood on stage adjusting equipment with hands that trembled slightly. And in the back corner, watching everything with cold calculation, stood a man Margaret recognized from photographs. Admiral William Cross. He'd arrived early. Hadn't told Casey. Hadn't announced himself, because he wasn't here to help. He was here to watch them die. There. Casey's whisper was barely audible. By the east exit, 3 men in civilian clothes. They're not contractors. They're operators. Cross's cleanup crew. What do we do? Margaret scanned the room, counted exits, assessed angles. We improvise. She pulled out her phone, typed a message to Hayes. Cross is compromised. Abort mission. Meet at secondary location. The response came in seconds. I know. I've always known. This is the only way. Margaret stared at the screen. Hayes had known. From the beginning. He'd sent her into this knowing Cross would be waiting. Another trap. Another betrayal. Margaret. Casey's hand gripped her arm. Derek starting. On stage, Derek approached the microphone. His voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ironclad Security Solutions demonstration of tactical excellence. The crowd applauded politely. Margaret's phone buzzed one final time. The evidence you need isn't in the server room. It's in Bradley's office safe. Third painting from the left. Thomas found it before he died. Now you will too. Finish this ghost. For all of us. Margaret read the message twice. Then she looked at Casey. Change of plans. What kind of change? Margaret smiled. The smile of a warrior about to go to war. The kind that ends with Bradley Harrison in handcuffs and Admiral Cross exposed for what he really is. And if it doesn't work, then it ends with me dead and you telling this story to the world. Casey swallowed hard. Let's make sure it's the first option. Margaret moved toward the exit. The final act was about to begin. Margaret moved through the service corridor with Casey 2 steps behind. The demonstration hall's muffled applause faded with each turn they took, replaced by the hum of ventilation systems and the echo of their footsteps on concrete. Bradley's office is on the top floor, Casey whispered. Security checkpoint at the elevator. 2 guards minimum. We're not taking the elevator. Then how? Margaret stopped at a utility door marked maintenance only. She pulled a key card from her janitor uniform. 2 years of being invisible has its advantages. The door opened to reveal a narrow stairwell. Emergency access. The kind that security rarely monitored because nobody used it. Stay behind me. If we encounter anyone, I know, let you handle it. They climbed. 12 floors. Margaret counted each one. Her knees protested by the 8th floor. Her lungs burned by the 10th. But she'd endured worse. Hell Week had been worse. Korengal Valley had been worse. Watching Thomas's casket lowered into the ground had been infinitely worse. This was just stairs. They reached the top floor at 2:07 p.m. The stairwell door opened to an empty hallway. Executive suite. Mahogany walls and expensive carpet that swallowed sound. Margaret checked both directions. Clear. His office is at the end, 30 meters. They moved fast. Each step measured. Each breath controlled. 20 meters. 10. 5. Margaret reached for the door handle. Wait. Casey grabbed her wrist. Listen. Voices from inside. 2 distinct. Male. Margaret pressed her ear to the wood. Can't trust her. Derek's voice. Agitated. Afraid. She knows too much. The janitor act was a cover the whole time. I'm aware. Bradley. Calm. Cold. Which is why we're accelerating the timeline. What about Cross? He said he'd handle it. Cross handles what I tell him to handle. And right now I'm telling him to let Ghost come to us. Margaret's blood chilled. You want her to come here? Derek sounded incredulous. After what she did yesterday? After what she found in the server room? She copied files, Derek. Files that prove nothing without the original source documents. Documents that are sitting in my safe right now. She'll come for them. She has to. It's her only play. And when she does, then we end this, permanently, the way we should have ended it with her husband 8 years ago. Margaret's hand moved toward her pistol. Casey's grip tightened on her wrist. Not yet, Casey breathed. We need the evidence first. Margaret forced her hand down, forced her breathing to steady. Cross's men are positioned throughout the building, Derek continued. If she gets past them, she won't. But if she does, you'll be waiting here with insurance. Insurance? A third voice cut through the conversation. Female. Terrified. Please, please, I don't know anything. I just started working here. Margaret's heart stopped. She knew that voice. The Reeves girl. Bradley's tone dripped satisfaction. Cross's goddaughter. Quite convenient, actually. Ghost seems to have taken a liking to her. Casey went rigid beside Margaret. Her face drained of color. That's not... Casey started. Quiet. Margaret's whisper was sharp. Listen. If Ghost values her new protege's life, Bradley continued, she'll surrender. Give us everything she has. And then we dispose of both of them. Clean, Quiet. No witnesses. What about Cross? Cross gets his cut and his protection. Same arrangement as always. He keeps the investigation buried. We keep operating. Everyone wins. Except them. They were never part of the equation. Silence stretched. Then footsteps, moving toward the door. Margaret pulled Casey back against the wall. They pressed into a recessed doorway as Bradley's office door opened. Derek emerged. His face was pale but determined. He walked toward the elevator without looking back. The door closed behind him. Margaret waited 30 seconds. 60. "There's someone in there," Casey whispered. "Someone they're using as bait. They think it's you. It can't be me. I'm right here." "Then who?" Casey's expression shifted, realization dawning. "Oh God. Oh God, no." "Casey, who?" "My roommate, Sarah. She started at Ironclad last month. I got her the job." Casey's voice cracked. "She looks like me. Same build, same hair color. From behind, they grabbed the wrong person. And they're going to kill her thinking she's me." Margaret processed this. The situation had just become infinitely more complicated. "We need to move. Now. We can't just burst in. Bradley's armed. He knows we're coming. He knows you're coming. He doesn't know I'm with you." Casey stared at her. "You want to use me as a distraction. I want to give him what he expects. You walk through that door. Surrender. Keep him talking. I'll come through the service entrance from the adjacent office. And Sarah, I get her out. Then I get the evidence. Then I get you." "What if something goes wrong?" Margaret met her eyes. "Then you fight. You fight with everything you have until you can't fight anymore." Casey swallowed hard. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "How long do I stall?" 2 minutes, maybe 3. "And if he shoots me the second I walk in?" "He won't. He needs you alive. Your leverage against Cross, against me, against everyone who might threaten his operation." "That's a lot of assumptions." "Welcome to combat." Margaret squeezed her shoulder. "You can do this. Your father was a SEAL. Your grandfather was a SEAL. This is in your blood." Casey nodded. Once. Firm. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Casey walked toward Bradley's door. Margaret disappeared into the shadows. The service corridor connecting Bradley's office to the adjacent conference room was exactly where Margaret remembered it. 2 years of pushing cleaning carts. 2 years of memorizing floor plans and access codes and security schedules. 2 years of being invisible. All of it led to this moment. She moved through the darkness, silent, focused, ghost once again. The conference room was empty. The connecting door to Bradley's office was locked from the inside. Margaret pulled out her picks, 30 seconds of delicate work. The lock clicked open. Through the crack in the door, she could see the scene unfolding. Casey stood in the center of Bradley's office, her hands raised, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I'm here. Let her go." Bradley sat behind his desk. A pistol lay within reach. His smile was the smile of a predator who'd cornered prey. And bound to a chair against the wall, gagged and terrified, was a young woman who looked enough like Casey to fool someone who'd only seen photographs. Sarah. Casey's roommate. An innocent caught in a war she didn't know existed. "Lieutenant Reeves," Bradley's voice dripped with false pleasantness. "How kind of you to join us. I said let her go. She has nothing to do with this." "No, she doesn't, which makes her the perfect insurance." Bradley stood, walked around the desk. "Where's Ghost?" "I don't know." "Lying doesn't suit you, Lieutenant. Your godfather speaks so highly of your integrity." Casey's jaw tightened. "My godfather is a traitor. Your godfather is a pragmatist. There's a difference." Margaret positioned herself at the door, 3 meters to Bradley, 2 meters to Sarah. She could cover the distance in under 2 seconds, but Bradley's hand rested on his pistol. If she moved too fast, "Tell me where Ghost is," Bradley continued. "Tell me where the evidence is stored. Do that and maybe I let your friend walk out of here. Maybe. Probably. Possibly. It depends on how cooperative you are. Casey glanced toward the connecting door. Margaret caught her eye, held up 2 fingers. 2 seconds. On my signal. Casey looked back at Bradley. The evidence isn't stored anywhere. It's already been transmitted. Bradley's smile faltered. What? Hayes. The man you thought was working alone. He had backup. Federal backup. Everything from the server room went to the FBI 20 minutes ago. It was a lie. A desperate, improvised lie. But the flicker of uncertainty in Bradley's eyes told Margaret it had landed. You're bluffing. Check your phone. Check your secure channels. See if anything's still secure. Bradley reached for his phone. Margaret moved. 3 meters in 1 second. Her body low. Her movement silent. Bradley looked up just as she reached him. His hand grabbed for the pistol. Too slow. Margaret's palm strike connected with his wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. Her elbow followed, driving into his solar plexus. Bradley doubled over, gasping. She grabbed his collar, slammed his head against the desk. Once. Hard. Bradley crumpled. The whole sequence took 4 seconds. Casey was already moving toward Sarah, pulling at the ropes that bound her to the chair. It's okay. It's okay. We're going to get you out of here. Sarah sobbed through her gag. Her eyes were wide with terror. Margaret checked Bradley, unconscious, his pulse steady. He'd live. She crossed to the wall. Third painting from the left. Hayes's message had been specific. The painting swung open to reveal a wall safe. Digital lock. 6 digits. Margaret tried the obvious combinations. Bradley's birthday, his anniversary, his company registration date. Nothing. Margaret, Casey's voice was urgent. We have maybe 3 minutes before someone checks on him. I know. She stared at the keypad. 6 digits. What would Bradley Harrison use as his code? A memory surfaced. Something she'd overheard during one of her invisible cleaning shifts. Bradley on the phone, laughing. My lucky numbers. The day everything changed. 031517. March 15th, 2017. The day Thomas died. Margaret's fingers trembled as she entered the code. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of documents, USB drives, ledgers with handwritten entries, and at the bottom a single photograph. Thomas Donovan. Bound. Bloodied. Taken in the hours before his death. Margaret's vision blurred. Her hands shook. They'd photographed him. They'd documented his suffering like a trophy. Margaret. Casey was beside her, her hand on Margaret's shoulder. We need to go. We can't process this now. She was right. Margaret knew she was right. But the rage, the grief, the 8 years of unanswered questions crystallizing into a single burning need for justice. Take everything. Margaret's voice was ice. Every document, every drive, leave nothing. Casey grabbed the contents of the safe, stuffed them into a bag she'd brought. Margaret took the photograph of Thomas. This one stays with me. They moved toward the service corridor. Behind them, Bradley groaned, beginning to regain consciousness. Casey. Margaret handed her the bag. Get Sarah out. Take the maintenance stairs. Don't stop until you reach the parking lot. What about you? I'll be right behind you. That's not... Go! Now! Casey hesitated. Saw something in Margaret's eyes that stopped her argument. 2 minutes, then I'm coming back for you. She pulled Sarah toward the door. The young woman stumbled, still disoriented from her captivity. Margaret watched them go. Then she turned back to Bradley Harrison. He was struggling to sit up. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead. You, his voice slurred. You're making a mistake. The only mistake was yours. Margaret crouched in front of him. 8 years ago, you killed my husband. Today, you answer for it. I didn't kill anyone. I'm a businessman. You're a traitor. You sold American lives for profit. You sold Thomas Donovan's location to people who tortured him before they killed him. Bradley's eyes widened. How do you... The photograph. In your safe. The one you kept like a trophy. His face went pale. Whatever denials he'd prepared died on his lips. Cross protected me. Cross will protect me still. You can't touch me. Cross is busy right now. He thinks I'm in the demonstration hall. He thinks his cleanup crew has me cornered. Margaret smiled. Cold. Dangerous. By the time he realizes what's happening, you'll be in FBI custody and the evidence will be public. You're bluffing. The FBI isn't involved. Are you sure want to bet your life on it? Bradley stared at her. Calculating. Desperate. What do you want? I want names. Every person in your network. Every buyer. Every seller. Every mole in every agency who protected you. If I give you that, I'm dead. They'll kill me before I reach trial. And if you don't give me that, I'll kill you before you reach the door. She meant it. In that moment, with Thomas's photograph burning against her chest, she absolutely meant it. Bradley must have seen the truth in her eyes. Cross, Hayes, Senator Whitmore on the Intelligence Committee, General Patterson at CENTCOM, and the buyers there are 12 primary clients. I have their information in a separate location, where a storage unit off-site. I can give you the address, but you'll need my biometrics to access it. Margaret processed this. A trap possibly. Or genuine desperation. You're coming with me. I can't walk. You hit me too hard. Then crawl. She pulled him to his feet. He swayed, nearly collapsed. She caught him, dragged him toward the service corridor. Where are we going? Somewhere you can't be rescued. Somewhere Cross can't find you. He'll find me. He always finds people. Not this time. Margaret pushed him through the door. This time, Ghost found you first. The service corridor stretched before them, and at the far end, blocking their exit, stood 3 men in tactical gear, Cross's cleanup crew. They'd found her. Margaret shoved Bradley behind her. Her hand went to her pistol. Ghost. The lead operator stepped forward. His voice was calm, professional. Admiral Cross sends his regards. Tell Cross he can go to hell. That's not very diplomatic. The operator raised his weapon. We've been authorized to use whatever force is necessary. Then use it. We'd rather not. Too much paperwork. Admiral Cross prefers clean resolutions. Clean resolutions? Is that what you called it when you killed my husband? The operator's expression flickered. Surprise, then recognition. Donovan. You're Donovan's wife. Widow, thanks to Cross and men like you. That operation was before my time. But you knew about it. Silence. Put down your weapon, the operator said finally. Come with us peacefully. We can discuss this like professionals. Margaret's finger rested on the trigger. 3 men. Military training. Superior firepower. In a narrow corridor with no cover. The math wasn't in her favor, but she'd faced worse odds in Korengal Valley. 31 kills in a single engagement. 72 hours alone against an enemy that wanted her dead. She'd survived that. She could survive this. You want me? Margaret raised her pistol. Come and get me. The first operator moved. Margaret fired. The shot caught him in the shoulder. Not fatal. Deliberate. She needed them disabled, not dead. He went down screaming. The second operator returned fire. Margaret dove, pulling Bradley with her. The bullet sparked off the concrete wall above her head. She rolled, fired twice. Both shots found their marks. Kneecaps. The operator collapsed. The third operator was smarter. He'd taken cover behind a support pillar, his weapon trained on the spot where Margaret had been. Impressive. His voice echoed through the corridor. I heard you were good. I didn't believe it until now. Believe it. One problem. You're out of cover. The moment you move, I have a clear shot. He was right. Margaret was pressed against the wall with nowhere to go. Bradley whimpered beside her. This is insane. You're going to get us both killed. Shut up. Margaret's mind raced. Options, angles, variables. The operator had cover. She didn't. He had patience. She was running out of time. But she also had something he didn't. 28 years of training, 127 kills, and absolutely nothing left to lose. "You know who I am," Margaret called out. "You know what I've done. I know you're a legend. I also know legends die just like everyone else." True. But legends also know things. Things that could end careers, end lives, end operations that took years to build. Silence. "I'm listening. The evidence from Bradley's safe. It's not with me anymore. It's with Casey Reeves. And she's already outside this building. Reeves is contained. We picked her up 10 minutes ago." Margaret's blood froze. No, Casey was supposed to get out. She was supposed to take the evidence and run. "You're lying." "Am I? Check your phone. See if she's responded to any of your messages." Margaret pulled out her phone. 3 texts to Casey, all unanswered. Oh God. "Here's the new deal," the operator continued. "You come with us. No more fighting. And maybe Admiral Cross lets Reeves live. And if I don't, then she dies, slowly, and you get to listen while it happens." Margaret closed her eyes. Casey, the young woman who'd reminded her of herself. The goddaughter of a traitor who'd chosen loyalty over blood. She'd promised to protect her. She'd promised Casey's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. And now, 1 minute ghost, then I start making phone calls. Margaret looked at Bradley. He was cowering against the wall. His expensive suit ruined his carefully constructed life crumbling around him. "The storage unit, the one with the buyer information. Where is it?" "What? Tell me now. Where is the storage unit?" 1947 Industrial Boulevard, Unit 23. "But it won't matter. Cross will destroy everything before you get there." Margaret committed the address to memory. Then she stood up, walked into the open. The operator emerged from behind his pillar, his weapon trained on her chest. Smart choice. Don't mistake this for surrender. Then what is it? A delay. Margaret let her pistol fall to the ground. "You won today, but you haven't won. Not yet." The operator moved closer, close enough to restrain her. "Cross is very interested in speaking with you, something about loose ends." "I'm sure he is." The operator reached for her arm. Margaret's hand shot out, grabbed his wrist, twisted. His weapon discharged into the ceiling. She drove her knee into his groin, followed with an elbow to his temple. He went down, but not before his finger found the radio on his shoulder. "All units, service corridor, code red, ghost is active." Margaret ran. Behind her the sound of boots, reinforcements coming. She hit the stairwell at full speed, 12 floors. She'd have to cover them faster than she'd ever moved in her life. Because somewhere in this building, Casey Reeves was in enemy hands, and Margaret Donovan wasn't going to let another person she cared about die. The maintenance stairs blurred past, floor after floor, her lungs screaming, her muscles burning. 9 floors. 7. 5. The stairwell door burst open above her, voices shouting, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Margaret kept running. 3 floors. 2. Ground level. She exploded through the exit door and into the parking lot, and stopped. 20 men formed a perimeter around the building. Tactical gear, automatic weapons, every exit covered. In the center of the formation stood Admiral William Cross, and beside him on her knees with her hands bound behind her back was Casey Reeves. Cross smiled when he saw Margaret. "Ghost, I've been looking forward to meeting you." Margaret's hand moved toward her concealed backup weapon. A dozen red dots appeared on her chest. "I wouldn't," Cross said pleasantly. "My men are very accurate, and Lieutenant Reeves here has already caused enough trouble for one day." Margaret raised her hands slowly. "Let her go. She has nothing you need." "On the contrary, she has everything I need. Leverage, insurance, a reminder of what happens to people who threaten my operation." "Your operation is over. The evidence is already transmitted." "Is it?" Cross's smile widened. "Because I've been monitoring every transmission from this building for the past 3 hours. Nothing has left. Your bluff to Harrison was just that. A bluff." Margaret's heart sank. "The server room transmitter. Hayes's device. You disabled it." "I disabled it the moment Colonel Hayes planted it." Did you really think I didn't know about his investigation? I've known for years. I let him chase shadows because it kept him contained, controllable. He trusted you. He trusted the uniform, the rank, the reputation I've spent 40 years building. People always trust those things. It makes them so easy to manipulate. Cross walked toward her, stopped 3 feet away. You could have stayed invisible. You could have kept pushing your mop and emptying your trash cans. You could have lived out your days in comfortable anonymity. But you chose this. You chose to expose yourself, to fight, to die. I chose to finish what Thomas started. Thomas was a fool. He thought integrity mattered. He thought the truth would set him free. Cross shook his head. The truth just got him killed, and now it's going to do the same to you. He pulled out his sidearm, pressed it against Casey's temple. Any last words, Ghost? Margaret looked at Casey. The young woman's eyes were wet but steady, afraid but unbroken. I'm sorry, Margaret said. Casey shook her head slightly. Don't be. Cross cocked the hammer, and then the night exploded. Headlights, sirens, vehicles screaming into the parking lot from every direction. FBI, local police, Virginia State Tactical Units. A helicopter appeared overhead, spotlight pinning Cross's formation in blinding white light. A voice boomed through a megaphone. Admiral William Cross, this is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You are surrounded. Put down your weapons and surrender immediately. Cross's face went white. That's not possible. I control not every federal agency. A man stepped out of the lead vehicle. Mid-60s, silver hair, hard eyes. Colonel Richard Hayes. Alive, armed, and surrounded by FBI agents. Did you really think I trusted you? Hayes called out. Did you really think 8 years of investigation would come down to a single transmitter in a building you controlled? He walked forward, confident, unafraid. The evidence was transmitted hours ago, not from Ironclad, from my secure location, from backup servers you didn't know existed. Every file, every transaction, every name in your network, all of it is now in federal hands. Cross's gun hand trembled. This is impossible. This is justice. Hayes stopped beside Margaret. Long overdue. Cross looked around. His men were lowering their weapons. Surrender was spreading through the formation like a wave. His empire was crumbling in real time. You can't do this. I have protections. You have nothing. Hayes's voice was iron. Admiral William Cross, you are under arrest for treason conspiracy and the murder of Sergeant Major Thomas Donovan and 17 other American service members. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. FBI agents moved forward, surrounded Cross, took his weapon. Casey collapsed into Margaret's arms as her restraints were cut. You came back, Casey whispered. You actually came back. I told you I would. I thought when they grabbed me. I know. Margaret held her tight. But it's over now. It's finally over. Across the parking lot, Bradley Harrison was being loaded into a federal vehicle. Derek Cole stood in handcuffs, his face a mask of disbelief. And Admiral William Cross, the architect of 8 years of betrayal, walked toward his own reckoning with the weight of exposed truth pressing down on his shoulders. Hayes approached Margaret and Casey. Hell of a night. Hell of an 8 years. Margaret looked at him. You knew Cross would betray you. You planned for it from the beginning. I planned for every contingency. Cross taught me that ironically. Trust the mission. Trust the process. Trust no one else. And the evidence? The real evidence. Hayes smiled. Safe, duplicated, distributed to enough agencies and journalists that it can never be suppressed. Cross's network is finished. Every name, every buyer, every mole in every agency. They're all going down. Margaret nodded slowly. It was over. 8 years of grief. 8 years of questions. 8 years of hiding in the shadows while monsters walked free. Over. She pulled Thomas's photograph from her jacket, looked at his face one last time. I finished it, she whispered, just like you wanted. The photograph shook in her trembling hands, and for the first time in 8 years, Margaret Donovan allowed herself to cry. The tears lasted 30 seconds. Margaret wiped her face with the back of her hand and forced the grief back into the compartment where she'd kept it for 8 years. There would be time for mourning later, time for processing, time for healing, but not now. We have a problem. Hayes stood beside her, his phone pressed to his ear. His expression had shifted from triumph to concern in the span of a single phone call. What kind of problem? The delivery. Bradley's delivery. It went through before we could intercept it. Margaret's blood chilled. That's not possible. We stopped the transaction. We stopped Bradley's transaction. But Cross had a backup, a dead man's switch. The moment he was arrested, an automated system transmitted everything to the buyers. Everything. Operator identities, home addresses, family information, school locations, everything. Casey had been listening. Her face went white. Those families. They're in danger right now. 37 operators, Hayes confirmed. Most of them deployed overseas. Their families are unprotected, and the buyers aren't just collectors. They're connected to a terrorist cell that's been waiting for exactly this kind of intelligence. Margaret looked across the parking lot. FBI agents were loading Cross into an armored vehicle. The Admiral's face was blank. Defeated. But his final act of betrayal was still in motion. How long do we have? The cell is based in Virginia. Domestic. They could mobilize within hours. Then we mobilize faster. Hayes shook his head. My teams are scattered. Admiral Cross's arrest threw the entire command structure into chaos. It'll take 12 hours minimum to coordinate a response. We don't have 12 hours. I know. Margaret's mind raced. 37 families, wives, children, parents, all of them going about their normal lives with no idea that death was coming. The cell. Do we know their location? We have fragments. Intelligence Cross gathered but never acted on. A warehouse compound outside Richmond, approximately 90 minutes from here. How many hostiles? Best estimate 15 to 20, heavily armed, prepared for exactly this kind of operation. 15 to 20 against what Margaret was one person. Hayes was one person. The FBI agents on scene were focused on processing arrests, not launching tactical assaults. There has to be another option. There isn't. Hayes's voice was heavy. I'm sorry, Margaret. We won. But we also lost. Cross made sure of that. Margaret stared at the chaos around her. Flashing lights, shouting agents, the wreckage of an empire built on betrayed trust. And somewhere out there, 37 families were about to pay the price. No. Hayes looked at her. No. I didn't survive 8 years of grief to watch more families destroyed. I didn't expose Cross just to let his final act of evil succeed. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we find another way, a faster way. With what resources? What personnel? Margaret turned to face him fully. You said the teams you need are 12 hours out, but what about teams that are already here? Teams that nobody thinks about because they've been invisible for so long. Everyone forgot they existed. Hayes frowned. I don't understand. Ironclad Security Solutions. It's not just corporate executives and young contractors. There are veterans here, real veterans, men and women who served, who deployed, who know how to fight. Former operators working as security guards and maintenance staff. Former operators who were pushed aside because they were too old, too broken, too female to matter in Bradley's new vision. Margaret's voice hardened, but they still have their training, they still have their skills, and right now they have a chance to prove that the people who dismissed them were wrong. Hayes considered this. The calculation was visible on his face. Risk versus reward. Probability of success versus certainty of failure. It would be completely unauthorized, no official sanction, no legal protection. Since when has that stopped people like us? A ghost of a smile crossed Hayes's face. Who did you have in mind? Margaret turned toward the ironclad building, the place that had hidden her for 2 years, the place that had employed dozens of veterans who'd been told their best days were behind them. Let me make some calls. The first call went to a man named Marcus Webb, 58 years old. Former Army Ranger, 2 tours in Afghanistan, now working as a night security guard at Ironclad because nobody wanted to hire a veteran with a prosthetic leg and occasional flashbacks. Marcus, it's Margaret Donovan. A pause. The janitor. The one who... The SEAL. Yes, I need your help. Ma'am, I saw what happened at the demonstration. The whole building's been talking about nothing else. Good. Then you know I'm not asking lightly. There's a situation. Operator families are in danger. We have maybe 6 hours before a terrorist cell launches attacks across Virginia. Jesus Christ. I need people who can fight. People who remember how. People who won't flinch when it gets ugly. Marcus was silent for a long moment. How many do you need? As many as you can find. Meet me in the back parking lot in 20 minutes. I'll make some calls. The second call went to a woman named Patricia Torres, 52 years old, former Marine Corps sniper, 23 confirmed kills in Iraq. Now working in Ironclad's IT department because her age and gender made her unemployable in the tactical sector she'd dominated for 15 years. Patricia, this is Ghost. Ghost. A sharp intake of breath, as in the Ghost Korangal Valley. Ghost. The same. I need a sniper. Tonight. What's the target? A terrorist cell. 15 to 20 hostiles. They're planning attacks on SEAL families. When? Hours. Maybe less. Patricia didn't hesitate. Where do you need me? Back parking lot, 20 minutes. I'll be there in 10. The third call went to the most unlikely candidate of all. 63 years old. Former Delta Force. 3 silver stars. A living legend who'd been forced into retirement because a car accident left him with chronic pain that the Army decided made him unfit for service. His name was Samuel Cross. No relation to the Admiral. Samuel, this is Margaret Donovan. Donovan. His voice was gravel and whiskey. Thomas Donovan's wife. Widow. Yes. I served with Thomas in '09. Ramadi. Hell of an operator. Hell of a man. I know. He spoke about you often. What do you need? I need you to do what you used to do. One more time. I'm 63 years old. I can barely walk some mornings. Can you still shoot? A pause. Better than anyone half my age. Then I need you. Tonight. For Thomas. For everyone like him, who gave everything and got betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect them. Samuel's breathing was heavy through the phone. Where? Back parking lot, 20 minutes. I'll bring my own gear. By the time Margaret reached the parking lot, 7 people were already waiting. Marcus Webb, Patricia Torres, Samuel Cross, and 4 others she'd never met but who'd responded to calls from their friends. Veterans, survivors, warriors who'd been told their time was over. They stood in a loose circle, their eyes tracking Margaret as she approached, assessing, evaluating. The instincts of soldiers who'd learned to judge threats before they materialized. Your Ghost, Marcus stepped forward. I recognize you now, from the photographs in the team room at Bragg. That was a long time ago. Legends don't have expiration dates. Margaret looked at each of them in turn. Marcus Webb, Army Ranger, prosthetic leg, 58. Patricia Torres, Marine Sniper, 23 kills, 52. Samuel Cross, Delta Force, 3 silver stars, 63. Robert Chen, Navy EOD, bomb disposal expert, 59. Diana Morrison, Army Intelligence, interrogation specialist, 54. William Foster, Green Beret, languages and cultural ops, 61. Angela Rodriguez, Air Force Pararescue, combat medic, 56. 7 warriors, average age 57. Combined experience over 200 years of military service. The kind of team nobody would see coming. Here's the situation, Margaret said. A terrorist cell is preparing to attack SEAL families across Virginia. We have their location. We have maybe 6 hours, and we have no official support. Why not? Diana Morrison asked. Because the people who were supposed to stop this were the ones who made it possible. Admiral William Cross. He sold the intelligence. He protected the network. He's in custody now, but his final betrayal is still in motion. The group processed this. Faces hardened. Jaws tightened. Cross. Samuel spat. I never trusted that bastard. Too smooth. Too political. Your instincts were right. His were wrong. And now 37 families are going to pay for it unless we stop it. What's the plan? Marcus asked. The cell is based in a warehouse compound outside Richmond. 15 to 20 hostiles. Heavily armed. Well prepared. And there are 7 of us. Patricia's voice was dry. 8 counting you. 8 against 20. Margaret nodded. I've faced worse odds. So have we. Samuel stepped forward. I didn't survive 3 wars to watch American families get slaughtered by terrorists. I'm in. I'm in, Marcus said. In, Patricia added. One by one they committed. 8 voices. 8 warriors. 8 invisible people who the world had forgotten. Then let's move. The convoy assembled in 15 minutes. 3 vehicles. 8 operators. Enough weapons and ammunition to start a small war. Hayes approached Margaret as she finished loading gear into her truck. I've arranged satellite support. You'll have eyes in the sky for the approach. What about extraction? A helicopter will be standing by 5 miles from the target. If things go sideways, get there and get out. No heroics. I stopped believing in heroics a long time ago. Hayes handed her a satellite phone. Direct line to me. Anything you need, call. What about official authorization? You don't have any. If this goes wrong, the government will deny everything. You'll be on your own. Margaret pocketed the phone. We've always been on our own. That's why they forgot about us in the first place. Casey Reeves appeared at her elbow. Her face was still pale from the night's trauma, but her eyes were determined. I'm coming with you. No, I'm not asking permission, and I'm not giving it. You've been through enough tonight. So have you. So have all of them. Casey gestured toward the team loading vehicles. But you're going anyway. Why should I be different? Because you're 26 years old. Because you have a future. Because I promised your father I'd protect you. My father's been dead for 12 years, and the man who was supposed to be my godfather just tried to kill me. Casey's voice cracked, but held steady. I don't need protection. I need to fight. I need to prove that everything Cross taught me wasn't a lie. Margaret studied her face, saw the same fire she'd seen in herself 30 years ago. You follow my orders. No questions. No hesitation. Understood. And if I tell you to run, you run, even if it means leaving me behind. Casey hesitated, then nodded. Get in the truck. The convoy rolled out at 9:47 p.m. 90 minutes to Richmond. 90 minutes to plan. 90 minutes before 8 warriors who'd been told they were obsolete proved the world wrong. Margaret sat in the lead vehicle, maps spread across her lap. Casey drove while Patricia Torres ran weapons checks in the back seat. The compound has 3 entry points, Margaret said. Main gate on the north side, service entrance on the east, emergency exit on the south. Guards, Patricia asked. Unknown. We'll assess when we arrive. Rules of engagement. Margaret looked up from the maps. Anyone who threatens innocent lives dies. Anyone who surrenders lives. We're not executioners. We're protectors. And if they don't surrender, then we do what we were trained to do. The highway stretched dark and empty ahead of them. Miles of asphalt separating them from a fight that would define everything. Casey's voice broke the silence. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. After Thomas died, after you found out the truth, why didn't you just stop, walk away, find peace somewhere? Margaret considered the question. It deserved an honest answer. Because peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice. I couldn't find peace while the people who killed Thomas walked free. I couldn't find peace while monsters like Cross wore uniforms and collected medals for betraying everything those uniforms represented. And now that Cross is in custody, now I find peace by making sure his last act of evil fails, by proving that the people he dismissed, the old, the broken, the forgotten, are still capable of extraordinary things. Patricia spoke from the back seat. That's why we came, you know, all of us. It wasn't just because you called, it was because you reminded us who we used to be, who you still are. Maybe, but we forgot for a while. The world made us forget. Told us we were too old, too damaged, too expensive to maintain. Easier to replace us with younger models who hadn't seen the things we'd seen. The younger models don't have what you have. What's that? Patience, perspective, the knowledge that comes from making mistakes and surviving them. Margaret turned to face her. Youth is fast. Experience is accurate. Tonight I'll take accurate. Patricia smiled. The smile of a sniper who'd spent her career proving that one perfect shot was worth more than 1,000 random bullets. Then let's show them what accurate looks like. The compound appeared at 11:23 p.m., a cluster of warehouses surrounded by chain-link fencing and darkness. No visible guards, no obvious security. Too quiet. Margaret raised her binoculars, scanned the perimeter. Movement in the main building, multiple heat signatures, at least 12. Armed? Marcus asked through the radio. Assume yes. Entry strategy. Margaret lowered the binoculars, thought through the options. Patricia, find an elevated position with sight lines to all 3 entrances. You're our guardian angel tonight. Copy that. Samuel, Marcus, you're with me on the north gate, primary assault team. Understood. Robert, Diana, east entrance. Wait for my signal before engaging. Roger. William, Angela, south exit. Nobody leaves that compound without our permission. Got it. Casey. Margaret turned to face her. You're with Patricia, spotter duty. Watch her back. Casey started to protest, then stopped. She'd promised to follow orders. Yes, ma'am. Everyone clear on their assignments. 7 acknowledgements came through the radio. Margaret checked her rifle, her pistol, her backup knife. The weight of weapons felt familiar, natural, like extensions of her body that had been missing for too long. Move out. Radio silence until contact. And remember, what? Marcus asked. We're not here to prove anything. We're here to save lives. Everything else is secondary. Copy that, Ghost. The team dispersed into the darkness. Margaret led Samuel and Marcus toward the north gate. They moved in silence, years of training guiding their footsteps. No wasted motion, no unnecessary sound. Ghost was hunting again. The north gate was unlocked. Margaret paused. Too easy. Everything about this approach was too easy. Trap, Samuel whispered. Possibly. Stay sharp. They slipped through the gate, crossed 20 meters of open ground to reach the main warehouse. Voices filtered through the walls. Arabic. Urgent. Planning. Margaret pressed her ear to the metal siding. Families are unprotected. We strike at dawn. Maximum casualties. Maximum fear. What about resistance? There will be none. These are civilians, women and children. They won't know what's happening until it's over. And afterward, we disappear. New identities, new locations. The network will protect us. Margaret's grip tightened on her rifle. Women and children. They were planning to murder women and children. I've heard enough, she whispered. On my mark. 3, 2, 1. She kicked the door. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Margaret's rifle found the first target before the door finished swinging. A man reaching for an AK-47. Center mass. Down. Samuel moved right. His pistol barked twice. 2 more hostiles dropped. Marcus went left, his prosthetic leg no hindrance to the fluid combat movements he'd perfected over decades. Contact north, Margaret shouted into her radio. Engaging. Patricia's voice came back immediately. I have eyes. 2 hostiles moving to flank your position from the east side. Robert, Diana, Intercept. Moving. The firefight intensified. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like lightning. Bullets sparked off metal containers and concrete floors. Margaret moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency. Target. Acquire. Eliminate. Move. Repeat. 3 hostiles charged from a side room. She dropped the first with a headshot. The second took 2 rounds to the chest. The third managed to raise his weapon before Samuel's rifle ended his attempt. Clear left, Samuel called. Clear right, Marcus added. Main floor secured, but there are more upstairs. Margaret looked toward the metal staircase at the far end of the warehouse. Shadows moved on the upper level. At least 6 more hostiles. Patricia, can you see the upper floor? Negative. No angle. You'll have to go in blind. Margaret exchanged looks with Samuel and Marcus. Just like the old days, Samuel said, except older. And wiser. They moved toward the stairs. The first hostile appeared at the top of the staircase with a grenade in his hand. Margaret fired before he could pull the pin. The man tumbled backward, the grenade clattering harmlessly to the floor. Go, go, go! They charged up the stairs. Each step a potential death trap. Each corner a possible ambush. The upper level was a maze of crates and equipment. Perfect cover for defenders. Nightmare terrain for attackers. Split up, Margaret ordered. Clear section by section. Radio contact every 30 seconds. They separated into the darkness. Margaret moved alone through the maze, her rifle sweeping each shadow, her breathing steady, her senses heightened. A sound to her left. Footsteps, trying to be quiet but failing. She pressed against a crate, waited. A man appeared around the corner, young, nervous, his weapon trembling in his hands. For a split second, Margaret hesitated. He was barely 20, probably radicalized online, probably had no idea what he was really fighting for, but he was also pointing a gun at American families. Drop it, Margaret said. He spun, fired wildly. Margaret's shot was precise. He fell. She kept moving. Section 1 clear, Samuel reported through the radio. Section 2 clear, Marcus added. Margaret reached the far corner of the upper level. A door marked office stood slightly ajar. Light filtered through the gap. She approached slowly. Listened. A voice inside, speaking English, American accent. Package is secure. The teams are already in position. By morning, every family on the list will be dead. Margaret's blood ran cold. The teams were already deployed. The attack wasn't happening at dawn. It was happening now. She kicked the door. The man inside spun from his radio equipment. Middle-aged, clean-cut. The face of someone who could walk through any neighborhood in America without raising suspicion. Who? Margaret's pistol was in his face before he finished the word. Call them off. What? Your teams, the ones you just sent to kill American families. Call them off. Now. The man smiled. The smile of a fanatic who'd already won. You're too late. They deployed an hour ago. Different cells, different cities. By the time you stop, 110 others will have completed their missions. Then you'll tell me where they all are. I'll tell you nothing. Margaret stepped closer. Her pistol pressed against his forehead. I've killed 127 people in my career. Men who thought they were warriors. Men who thought they were untouchable. Men who smiled at me just like you're smiling now. She cocked the hammer. None of them are smiling anymore. The man's smile faltered. You won't shoot me. You need information. Dead men don't talk. No, but dying men beg. Margaret lowered her aim. Kneecaps first, then elbows. Then I work my way toward things you'll really miss. You're bluffing. Am I? She fired. The man screamed, collapsed. His right kneecap shattered beyond repair. That's one. You have 3 more joints and about 4 minutes before shock sets in. After that, you won't be able to tell me anything. You're insane. I'm a mother who lost her husband to people like you. I'm a soldier who's watched friends die while monsters walked free. Margaret crouched beside him. I'm the woman who's going to end this tonight one way or another. The only question is how much of yourself you'll have left when it's over." The man sobbed. Blood pooled beneath him. "The locations. Where are the teams? I can't, they'll kill me. I'll kill you faster." He broke. Names. Addresses. Team compositions. Target lists. Everything spilled out in a torrent of pain and terror. Margaret memorized each detail. Then she keyed her radio. "Hayes, emergency transmission, multiple teams deployed across Virginia. I have locations." She recited the list. 13 targets, 13 families, 13 chances for tragedy. "FBI is mobilizing now," Hayes responded. "We'll intercept as many as we can." "How many is as many?" A pause. "Maybe half. The rest are too far out. Then we go to the rest." "You can't be in 13 places at once." "No, but we can be in 6, and we know these neighborhoods. We know these families. We can reach them faster than any federal response team. Margaret, just tell me which targets are uncovered. We'll handle the rest." Another pause. Hayes calculating, weighing options that had no good outcomes. "I'm sending you coordinates now. 6 families, all within 90 minutes of your current position." "We're moving." Margaret looked at the man on the floor. He'd stopped screaming. Shock was setting in. "Medical team is coming," she said. "Tell them everything you told me. Maybe they'll save your leg." She walked out. The convoy reassembled at 11:58 p.m. 8 warriors, 6 targets, 90 minutes to cover 200 miles of Virginia highway. "Split up," Margaret ordered. "Teams of 2, 1 target each. No backup, no second chances." "And the 6th target?" Casey asked. Margaret looked at her. "That one's mine, alone." "You can't." "I can. I will. These families don't have time for arguments." She assigned pairs: Samuel and Marcus, Patricia and Robert, Diana and William, Angela and Casey. "Move fast, hit hard, protect the families at all costs." "And if we're too late?" Angela asked. Margaret met her eyes. "Then we make sure the people responsible never hurt anyone again." The teams dispersed. Margaret climbed into her truck. Alone. The 6th target was 47 minutes away. She had 45 minutes to get there. The engine roared. Tires screamed against asphalt. Ghost was racing against time. And time was winning. The Hendricks family lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Fredericksburg. Lieutenant Commander James Hendricks was deployed somewhere in the Pacific. His wife Sarah was home with their 3 children, ages 12, 9, and 6. According to the man in the warehouse, a 2-person team had been dispatched to their address. Arrival time, midnight. Margaret checked her watch, 12:03 a.m. She was late. The truck skidded to a stop outside the Hendricks house. Margaret was out before the engine finished dying. No lights inside, no sounds of struggle. Either the team hadn't arrived yet or they'd already finished. Margaret moved toward the front door, her weapon raised, her senses screaming. The door was unlocked. Open a crack. She pushed through. Darkness. Silence. Then a child's whimper from upstairs. Margaret took the stairs 3 at a time, her heart hammering. Her training screaming at her to slow down, clear corners, check threats. But a child was crying. Nothing else mattered. She found them in the master bedroom. Sarah Hendricks, bound to a chair, gagged, her eyes wide with terror. 3 children huddled on the bed, the oldest holding the youngest, all of them crying silently. And standing over them, 2 men in black tactical gear. One had a knife pressed to Sarah's throat. The other was reaching for the children. "Stop!" Margaret's voice cut through the room like a blade. Both men spun. Weapons rising. Margaret fired twice. The man with the knife dropped. The second man managed to squeeze off a shot that went wide before Margaret's 3rd round ended him. Silence. Then the children started screaming. Margaret moved to Sarah, cut her bonds, removed her gag. "It's okay. It's over. You're safe." Sarah collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Who are you?" "A friend. Someone who wasn't going to let them hurt your family." "James, my husband. He's fine. He's safe. And so are you." Margaret held her while the children cried and the bodies of their would-be murderers cooled on the floor. The mission wasn't over, but one family was safe, one victory in a night of battles. And somewhere across Virginia, 7 other warriors were fighting the same fight. Margaret's radio crackled. "Ghost, this is Patricia. Target secured. Family safe." "Copy that." "Ghost, Samuel here. Hostiles neutralized. No casualties." "Copy." One by one, the reports came in. 6 targets, 6 families, all safe, against all odds, against all expectations. 8 invisible warriors had done the impossible. Margaret sat in the Hendricks living room at 1:47 a.m. Sarah had finally stopped crying. The children were asleep, exhausted by terror and relief. Hayes called on the satellite phone. FBI intercepted the remaining teams, all threats neutralized. The network is done. Casualties. 3 agents wounded. None critical, no civilian losses. Margaret closed her eyes. It's over. It's over. Hayes paused. Margaret, what you did tonight, what your team did, I don't have words. Then don't use any. Just make sure those families get protection. Real protection. Not the kind Cross provided. Already arranged. And the people who helped me, the veterans, the invisible ones, make sure they're taken care of. I will. I promise. The call ended. Margaret looked at Sarah Hendricks sleeping on the couch with her children pressed against her. A family. Intact. Alive. Because 8 people who'd been told they didn't matter had proven that they did. The first light of dawn was touching the horizon when Margaret finally allowed herself to breathe. 6 months felt like 6 lifetimes. Margaret stood in the hallway outside the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing room, her dress uniform pressed sharp enough to cut glass. The medals on her chest caught the fluorescent light. The trident gleamed against the blue fabric. She hadn't worn this uniform in 10 years. It still fit. That surprised her more than anything. "You ready?" Casey Reeves stood beside her wearing her own dress blues, lieutenant junior grade now promoted after the events in Virginia. "No. That's not the answer I was hoping for. It's the honest one." Margaret adjusted her collar. "I've faced Taliban fighters, survived Hell Week twice, held a position alone for 72 hours against impossible odds. But this," she gestured toward the hearing room doors, "this terrifies me. Public speaking, public existing. I spent 10 years being invisible. Now they want me to be a symbol. You already are a symbol. You just didn't know it." The doors opened. A young aide appeared. "Master Chief Donovan, the committee is ready for you." Margaret took a breath, held it, released. "Here we go." The hearing room was packed. Senators in their elevated positions. Cameras from every major network. Reporters scribbling in notebooks. Military brass lining the walls. And in the gallery, seated together, 7 faces Margaret recognized. Marcus Webb, Patricia Torres, Samuel Cross, Robert Chen, Diana Morrison, William Foster, Angela Rodriguez, her team, her warriors, the invisible ones who'd saved 37 families on the darkest night of their lives. They'd come to watch her testify. They'd come to remind her she wasn't alone. Margaret walked to the witness table, sat, adjusted the microphone. Senator Elizabeth Warren leaned forward. "Master Chief Donovan, thank you for appearing before this committee. Your testimony today is crucial to our investigation into the Cross Network and the failures that allowed it to operate for nearly a decade." "Thank you, Senator. Before we begin formal questioning, would you like to make an opening statement?" Margaret looked at her prepared remarks. 3 pages of carefully crafted language approved by lawyers vetted by military public affairs. She pushed them aside. "I would, but not the statement I was told to give." Murmurs rippled through the room. "Master Chief, 8 years ago my husband was murdered. Sergeant Major Thomas Donovan, SEAL Team 5, killed in Ramadi because someone sold his location to enemy fighters." Her voice was steady. She'd practiced this in front of her bathroom mirror 100 times. For 8 years, I believed his death was the cost of war. Acceptable losses, as the bureaucrats call it. I grieved. I raged. I eventually went silent, became invisible, took a job pushing a mop because I couldn't bear to be seen anymore. Master Chief, this is highly irregular. Let her speak. Senator John McCain's voice cut through the objection. This woman earned that right. Margaret nodded her thanks. 6 months ago, I discovered the truth. My husband wasn't killed by enemy fighters exploiting a lucky intelligence break. He was murdered by Americans. By people wearing the same uniform I'm wearing now. By people who swore the same oath we all swore. She leaned into the microphone. Admiral William Cross, Bradley Harrison, Derek Cole, and the network of buyers and collaborators who helped them sell American blood for profit. They operated for nearly a decade. They compromised operators across multiple commands. They got away with it because the system designed to protect us was too broken to stop them. Master Chief, that's a serious allegation. It's not an allegation. It's documented fact. The evidence is in your files. The guilty parties are in federal custody. The only question remaining is whether this committee has the courage to acknowledge what happened and fix the system that allowed it. Silence. Senator Warren removed her glasses, set them carefully on the desk. What exactly are you asking us to do? 3 things. Margaret held up her fingers. First, establish an independent oversight body for special operations intelligence. No more admirals investigating themselves. No more networks hiding in the shadows of classified programs. Second, reform veteran reintegration. The people who helped me stop the attacks last month weren't active operators. They were veterans. Men and women in their 50s and 60s who'd been pushed aside because they were too old, too damaged, too expensive to maintain. They saved 37 families because someone finally asked them to serve again. And third, Margaret paused. This was the hard one. Accountability. Real accountability. Not just for Cross and Harrison and Cole. For everyone who looked the other way. Everyone who knew something was wrong and chose silence over honor. Everyone who decided their career mattered more than American lives. That could implicate dozens of senior officials. Yes, it could. The political implications. Respectfully, Senator, I don't care about political implications. I care about the families who almost died because nobody had the courage to speak up. I care about my husband who did speak up and was murdered for it. Her voice cracked. She steadied it. If this committee wants to honor the dead start by protecting the living, fix the system, punish the guilty, and make damn sure nothing like this ever happens again. She sat back. The hearing room was silent. Then from the gallery, Marcus Webb started clapping. Patricia Torres joined him. One by one, the veterans rose, applauding. A standing ovation that spread through the gallery like wildfire. Senator Warren looked at her colleagues, at the cameras, at the woman in the witness chair who'd just torn apart 10 years of institutional failure in 5 minutes. Master Chief Donovan, this committee will take your recommendations under serious advisement. That's all I ask. Though I suspect you're asking for considerably more than that. Margaret allowed herself a small smile. Maybe, but I've learned that sometimes you have to start with what's possible before you can achieve what's necessary. A wise approach. Senator Warren nodded. We'll take a 15-minute recess before continuing with formal questioning. The gavel fell. Margaret stood, and for the first time in 10 years, she didn't feel invisible. The recess brought visitors. Colonel Richard Hayes found her in the hallway, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. That wasn't the approved statement. No, it wasn't. The Pentagon is going to have opinions about that. The Pentagon can add their opinions to the pile of things I don't care about. Margaret accepted the coffee. What's the latest on Crossquote? Trial starts next month. Prosecutors are confident. Between your testimony and the evidence from Bradley's safe, he's looking at life without parole. And Bradley pleaded guilty last week. 25 years federal. He's cooperating with investigators in exchange for protective custody. Derek Cole. 50 years. Turns out falsifying military records and conspiracy to commit murder carry significant sentences. Margaret sipped her coffee, bitter, exactly how she liked it. What about the families, the ones we saved? Hayes smiled, something Margaret hadn't seen him do often. The Hendricks family sends their regards. Sarah started a support group for military spouses dealing with security threats. Lieutenant Commander Hendricks is being transferred stateside so they can be together. And the others? Recovering. Some faster than others. But they're alive. Their children are alive. Because of what you and your team did. It wasn't my team. Then whose was it? Margaret looked through the doorway at the veterans still gathered in the gallery. Theirs. They chose to fight. They chose to serve again when nobody asked them to. I just made the phone calls. You did more than that. You reminded them who they were. They never forgot. They just needed someone to remember with them. Casey appeared at her elbow. Sorry to interrupt. There's someone here to see you. Who? Casey's expression was unreadable. She says she's your mother-in-law. Margaret's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. Thomas's mother. She's in the conference room down the hall. Said she's been trying to reach you for months. Margaret hadn't spoken to Eleanor Donovan since the funeral. Hadn't been able to face her. Hadn't known what to say to the woman who'd lost her only son. I can tell her you're busy, Casey offered. The hearing resumes in 10 minutes. No, Margaret set down her coffee. I'll see her. Eleanor Donovan was 78 years old and still as formidable as the day Margaret had first met her. She sat in the conference room with her hands folded on the table. Her eyes, Thomas's eyes, tracked Margaret as she entered. Margaret. Eleanor. They stared at each other. 10 years of silence hanging between them. I watched your testimony on the television in the lobby. Eleanor's voice was steady. You didn't tell me you were coming to Washington. I didn't know how to reach you. You could have tried. Yes, I could have. More silence. Margaret remained standing, uncertain. This woman had every right to hate her. Thomas had died and Margaret had disappeared into grief instead of facing the family he'd left behind. Sit down, child. You're making me nervous. Margaret sat. Eleanor studied her for a long moment. You look tired. You look older. But you also look like yourself again. The way you looked when Thomas first brought you home. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. The fire, the purpose. Whatever was burning in you that made my son fall in love with you in the first place. Eleanor leaned forward. It was gone for a long time. I could see it at the funeral. The light went out. Your son was my light. No. Your son was your partner. Your light was always your own. Thomas saw that. It's why he chose you. Margaret's throat tightened. I'm sorry. For disappearing. For not being there. For... Stop. Eleanor raised her hand. I didn't come here for apologies. I came here to say something I should have said 10 years ago. What? I'm proud of you. The words hit Margaret like a physical blow. You're proud of me. I watched you destroy the people who killed my son. I watched you save families from suffering the way our family suffered. I watched you stand in front of the United States Senate and demand accountability from people who thought they were untouchable. Eleanor's eyes glistened. My son married a warrior. I always knew that. But I never understood what it meant until today. Warriors don't stop fighting just because they've lost. They don't quit just because the world tells them to. They keep going. They keep serving. They keep protecting the people who need protecting. She reached across the table, took Margaret's hands. Thomas would be so proud of you. I hope you know that. Margaret's composure finally broke. The tears came. Not the brief, controlled tears she'd allowed herself in the parking lot 6 months ago. Real tears. Deep tears. The kind she'd been holding back since the day she'd watched her husband's casket disappear into the earth. Eleanor held her hands and let her cry. I miss him, Margaret whispered. Every day, every hour. I miss him so much, It feels like my chest is caving in. I know. I miss him too. I don't know how to live without him. I've been pretending for 10 years, but I don't actually know how. You don't live without him. You live with him, with his memory, with his love, with everything he taught you and everything you taught each other. Eleanor squeezed her hands. That's what love means, Margaret. It doesn't end when the person leaves. It just changes. Becomes something you carry instead of something you hold. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. You're strong enough to face anything. You've proven that. Now you just have to prove it to yourself. The conference room door opened. Casey's face appeared. I'm sorry. The hearing's resuming. Margaret wiped her eyes, straightened her uniform. I have to go. I know. Eleanor stood. But Margaret, yes. When this is done, come to Virginia, to the house. I have things of Thomas's that you should have. Letters, photographs, things he wanted you to see. I will, I promise. Good. Eleanor smiled, Thomas's smile. Now go finish what you started. The hearing lasted 4 more hours. Margaret answered questions about her investigation, about the network's operation, about the night she'd led 8 veterans to save 37 families. She was cross-examined by senators who wanted to challenge her methods, her motivations, her right to act outside official channels. She answered every question with the same steady composure she'd maintained through 100 firefights. By the end, even the skeptics were silent. Senator Warren delivered the closing statement. Master Chief Donovan, this committee has heard extraordinary testimony today. Testimony that reveals both the best and worst of our military institutions. The worst being the failures that allowed the cross-network to operate. The best being the courage of individuals like yourself who refuse to accept those failures. Thank you, Senator. We will be recommending the establishment of the oversight body you suggested. We will be proposing reforms to veteran reintegration programs. And we will be pursuing accountability for those who enabled these crimes. That's all I ever wanted. I doubt that very much. Senator Warren allowed herself a rare smile. But it's a start. She lifted her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. The celebration that night was small but meaningful. Hayes had reserved a private room at a restaurant near Capitol Hill. The 8 veterans gathered around a long table trading stories and drinks like they'd known each other for decades instead of months. Margaret sat at the head of the table watching them. Marcus Webb demonstrating his prosthetic legs party trick of opening beer bottles. Patricia Torres arguing with Samuel Cross about proper sniper positioning techniques. Robert Chen explaining the finer points of bomb disposal to Diana Morrison, who pretended to listen while actually watching William Foster teach Angela Rodriguez to fold napkins into swans. And Casey Reeves seated at Margaret's right hand, taking it all in with the wide-eyed wonder of someone who'd just discovered a family she didn't know she had. They're remarkable, Casey said quietly. All of them. They're warriors. Warriors find each other. Is that what happened with us? Margaret considered the question. I think we found each other because we needed to, because the mission required it, because the universe has a way of putting people together when important things need to happen. That's surprisingly mystical for a Master Chief. 28 years of service teaches you things, not just tactics and techniques, the bigger things, the patterns. What patterns? The ones that show you life isn't random, that every person you meet, every choice you make, every path you walk, it all connects. It all matters. It all leads somewhere. Casey looked at her mentor, the woman who'd dragged her through the most terrifying night of her life and emerged as something like a second mother. Where does your path lead now? I don't know. That's the exciting part. Hayes stood and tapped his glass. If I could have everyone's attention. The table quieted. I'd like to propose a toast to the 8 of you who answered a call that nobody should have had to make. Who put your lives on the line for families you'd never met. Who proved that service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. He raised his glass. To the invisible warriors. May the world finally see what you're capable of. To the invisible warriors. The table echoed. Glasses clinked. Drinks were consumed. Margaret stood. I have something to add. The table fell silent again. 6 months ago, I was a janitor, a widow, a woman who'd given up on everything except survival. I'd convinced myself that my best days were behind me, that I had nothing left to offer, that being invisible was the same as being safe. She looked at each of them in turn. You reminded me I was wrong, every single one of you. You picked up weapons you hadn't touched in years. You ran toward danger instead of away from it. You proved that the people who dismissed you, who called you too old, too broken, too female, too damaged, were the ones who were wrong. Her voice strengthened. This isn't the end of our story. It's the beginning. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the Secretary of Defense to discuss a new program, a way to identify and utilize veterans like us, people who the system forgot, but who never forgot how to serve. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of program? They're calling it the Ghost Initiative, named after a call sign I earned a long time ago. The idea is simple. Find the invisible warriors, the ones who've been pushed aside and overlooked, and give them a chance to serve again. Training, consulting, emergency response, whatever their skills allow. And you're running it. They asked me to. I said I'd only do it if I could choose my own team. She looked around the table. So, interested. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. 2 weeks later, Margaret stood at Arlington National Cemetery. The spring had turned warm, and the grass between the headstones was brilliant green. Cherry blossoms drifted on the breeze like pink snow. She walked the familiar path to Section 60, to the stone that bore her husband's name. Sergeant Major Thomas Andrew Donovan, United States Navy SEAL, beloved husband, fallen warrior, forever honored. Margaret knelt in front of the stone, placed the flowers she'd brought, white roses, his favorite, in the bronze holder. Hey, sweetheart. She'd started talking to him again. After the mission, after the testimony, after the night she'd finally let herself cry in Eleanor's arms. It didn't feel crazy anymore. It felt necessary. I finished it. Everything you started. The network is gone. Cross is in prison. The families are safe. She touched the cold marble. Your mom came to see me at the Senate hearing. She told me you'd be proud. I don't know if that's true, but I hope it is. A cardinal landed on a nearby headstone, red against gray, watching her with curious black eyes. I'm going to lead a new program, training veterans, giving the invisible ones a chance to serve again. They're calling it the Ghost Initiative. She laughed softly. Can you believe it? Your wife, the one who couldn't even look at her own reflection for a decade now, has a program named after her. The cardinal chirped, flew away. I miss you. Every day. Every minute. That's not going to change. But I'm learning to carry it differently now. To let the grief exist alongside the purpose instead of drowning in it. She stood, brushed grass from her knees. I have to go. Casey's waiting. We're meeting with the first class of veterans this afternoon. Former Rangers, Green Berets, SEALs. All of them told they were too old to matter. She smiled. We're going to prove everyone wrong, just like we always did. She touched the headstone one last time. I love you, Thomas. Always have. Always will. And wherever you are, whatever comes next, save a spot for me. We've got a lot of catching up to do. She walked away. Behind her, the wind stirred the cherry blossoms into a spiral that swirled around Thomas's headstone before settling gently against the marble. Almost like an embrace. Almost like goodbye. Almost like the promise of reunion. The Ghost Initiative launched 3 months later. The first class had 24 veterans, average age 56, combined service over 400 years, medals and commendations too numerous to count. They'd been warehouse workers, security guards, truck drivers, janitors, people who'd served their country with everything they had and then been forgotten by the institutions they'd protected. Now they were warriors again. Margaret stood before them on the first day of training, Casey at her side, the original 8 veterans from the Virginia mission serving as instructors. Welcome to the Ghost Initiative. I'm Master Chief Margaret Donovan, Some of you may have heard of me. Most of you probably haven't. That's fine. We're not here to compare resumes. She walked along the line of faces, men and women, old and older, weathered by time and service but unbroken by either. You were told you were finished. Too old, too damaged, too expensive to maintain. The world threw you away like broken equipment, and for a while, you believed them. She stopped, turned to face them all. Starting today, you stop believing. Starting today, you remember who you really are. Not former warriors, not retired operators. Warriors. Period. The skills don't expire. The training doesn't fade. The commitment doesn't have a shelf life. What exactly are we training for? A man in the front row, 58, former special forces. Whatever's needed, emergency response, security consulting, training the next generation, crisis intervention. Wherever there's a mission that requires people who've been tested by combat and survived, that's where you'll go. And if the mission gets dangerous, then you'll handle it the same way you handled every dangerous mission before. With courage, with skill, with absolute commitment to protecting the innocent. She walked back to the front of the formation. I won't lie to you. This won't be easy. The world still thinks you're obsolete. Proving them wrong takes work, takes sacrifice, takes the willingness to be uncomfortable and challenged and pushed beyond what you think you're capable of. But if you're standing here today, you've already proven you have what it takes. You didn't quit when life got hard. You didn't give up when the system abandoned you. You kept fighting, kept serving, kept believing that your experience and your sacrifice meant something. She smiled. It does. It means everything. And starting today, you're going to prove it to the world. Hoorah! The response came from 24 throats, a battle cry that hadn't faded despite years of disuse. Margaret felt it in her bones, the sound of purpose returning. Let's get to work. 1 year after the Ghost Initiative's founding, the program had trained over 200 veterans. They'd responded to 17 crisis situations across the country, provided security consulting to 34 military families facing threats, trained 1,200 active duty personnel in advanced tactics developed from decades of real-world experience. Margaret had given up counting the thank you letters. The program's headquarters occupied a renovated warehouse in Virginia Beach, close to where everything had begun, close to where Margaret had pushed her mop and emptied her trash cans and dreamed of justice. She kept her old janitor uniform in her office, framed, a reminder of where she'd been, of who she'd chosen to become. Casey Reeves commanded the training division now, lieutenant commander, the youngest person to ever hold that position. She was good at it, better than good. You're going to be late. Margaret looked up from her desk. Casey stood in the doorway holding a garment bag. Late for what? The ceremony. You're being honored at the Pentagon, remember? Margaret groaned. Can I skip it? The Secretary of Defense specifically requested your presence, so no. I hate ceremonies. You hate being visible, that's different. Is it? Casey walked in. Hung the garment bag on the back of the door. Your dress uniform, freshly pressed, all your medals in order, including the new one. What new one? The Presidential Medal of Freedom. They're presenting it tonight. Margaret stared at her. They're what? Presenting you with the highest civilian honor in the United States. For your service, for the families you saved, for the Ghost Initiative. Casey smiled. For being a legend. I'm not. You are. Accept it. Margaret leaned back in her chair, 55 years old, silver hair she no longer bothered to hide, lines on her face that told stories she'd finally stopped being ashamed of. A legend, maybe. Thomas would have laughed at this, she said quietly. Me getting medals, being celebrated. He always said I was terrible at accepting compliments. Maybe that's why you're so good at everything else. You never rested on your accomplishments. Or maybe I just never thought I deserved them. And now, Margaret looked at the framed janitor uniform, at the photographs on her desk, Thomas on their wedding day, the original 8 veterans from the mission, 200 graduates of the Ghost Initiative. Now I think I finally earned them. She stood, took the garment bag. Let's go accept an honor I don't want in a ceremony I didn't ask for, surrounded by people I probably won't like. That's the spirit. Casey. Yeah. Thank you for everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For standing with me when everyone else would have run. For being the daughter I never had. Casey's eyes glistened. You're going to make me cry before a formal ceremony. Good. You look better with red eyes. More intimidating. I learned from the best. They walked out together. The Pentagon ceremony was everything Margaret expected. Speeches, politicians, camera flashes, the president himself placing the medal around her neck while she tried not to look as uncomfortable as she felt. But afterward, in the quiet moment before the reception, something unexpected happened. A young woman approached her, early 20s, nervous, wearing the uniform of a Navy ensign. Master Chief Donovan? Yes. I'm Ensign Sarah Mitchell. I just graduated from Buds last month. Margaret's eyebrows rose. Female SEAL candidates were still rare. Graduates even rarer. Congratulations, Ensign. That's one hell of an achievement. Thank you, ma'am, but I wanted to tell you something. Go ahead. I almost quit. 3 times. During Hell Week. During pool competency. During the final evolution. Sarah's voice trembled. But every time I wanted to ring that bell, I thought about you. About what you survived. About what you accomplished. About the speech you gave at the Senate hearing. You watched that. Everyone watched it. Every female candidate in every pipeline across every service watched it. You told us that excellence doesn't have a gender. That the standard doesn't care who meets it. That being underestimated is a weapon if you know how to use it. Sarah straightened, pride blazing in her eyes. I'm standing here today because of you. Because you showed us it was possible. Because you became visible so that we could become visible too. Margaret's throat tightened. I didn't do it for recognition. I know, that's why it mattered. Sarah saluted, sharp, perfect. Margaret returned it. Go change the world, Ensign Mitchell. Yes, ma'am, I intend to. Sarah walked away, toward a future that Margaret's generation had fought to make possible. Casey appeared at Margaret's elbow. That just happened. Yes, it did. How does it feel knowing you inspired the next generation? Margaret watched Sarah disappear into the crowd. Young, determined, ready to prove everyone wrong. It feels like the mission isn't over. It's just changing hands. Is that a good thing? Margaret smiled, a real smile, the kind she'd almost forgotten she was capable of. It's the best thing. It means everything we fought for, everything Thomas died for, it wasn't wasted. It's being carried forward by people who'll go further than we ever imagined. And you, what's next for you? Margaret looked around the room, at the politicians and generals and dignitaries who'd spent the evening celebrating her. First I survive this reception, then I go back to work. Then I train more veterans. Then I do it again tomorrow and the day after and every day until there's nothing left to give. That sounds exhausting. That sounds like service. She straightened her shoulders, adjusted her medal. That's what warriors do. We serve, until we can't, and then we train the next generation to serve better than we did. Any regrets? Margaret thought about the question, really thought about it. Thomas, the years of grief, the decade of invisibility, the pain and the loss and the moments when giving up seemed easier than going on. No regrets, just lessons. And lessons are how we grow. She walked toward the reception. Casey watched her go. The invisible woman who'd become a legend. The janitor who'd become a hero. The widow who'd become a mentor. The warrior who'd never stopped fighting. 3 years later, Margaret returned to Arlington. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom again. The same pink snow she remembered from every visit before. But this time was different. This time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood 200 veterans of the Ghost Initiative, former warriors who'd been forgotten by the world and remembered by each other. Men and women who'd proven that age was just a number and experience was priceless. Beside her stood Casey Reeves, commander now, leading her own team, making her own legends. And in her hands, Margaret held a flag, folded, perfect, the same flag that had covered Thomas's casket 20 years ago. She knelt at his headstone. "I brought some friends." She placed her hand against the cold marble. "They wanted to pay their respects, to thank you. Because everything we've built, everything we've accomplished started with you, with your sacrifice, with your courage, with the love you taught me was worth fighting for." Behind her, 200 voices spoke in unison. "We remember." Margaret smiled through tears. "Hear that they remember. We all remember. And we're going to keep remembering. Keep fighting. Keep serving. Until there's nobody left who needs protecting." She stood, stepped back. Casey moved forward, placed a seal trident on the headstone. "From everyone who came after, thank you for showing us the way." One by one, the veterans filed past, each one leaving something. A medal, a unit patch, a photograph, a letter. Tributes to a fallen warrior from warriors who'd found their purpose again. When the last veteran had passed, Margaret stood alone at the grave. The sun was setting, orange and red and purple streaking across the Virginia sky. "This is goodbye, Thomas. Not forever, just for now." She touched the headstone. "I'll be back. I'll always come back. But I don't need to carry the grief like a weight anymore. You taught me that. The life we shared, the love we built. It's not a burden. It's a gift." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm going to live now, really live, the way you wanted me to, the way you always believed I could." The wind stirred the cherry blossoms. Margaret walked away from the grave with her head held high. Behind her, the setting sun painted Thomas's headstone in gold. And somewhere in that space between memory and hope, a warrior smiled. Because his wife had finally understood. Love doesn't end. It transforms. It becomes the legacy we leave behind. And legacies like warriors never truly die. Margaret Donovan walked out of Arlington National Cemetery and into the rest of her life. Not invisible anymore. Not broken anymore. Not alone anymore. A warrior. A leader. A legend. And the measure of her life wasn't the battles she'd won or the medals she'd earned. It was the warriors she'd trained, the families she'd saved, and the simple truth she'd finally learned to accept. The strongest warriors aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall and rise and keep fighting until the fighting means something. That was Thomas Donovan's legacy. That was Margaret Donovan's purpose. And that was the truth that would echo through generations of warriors yet to come. The standard never lowered. The door stayed open. And the invisible became unstoppable.